across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Let's get it on. Good afternoon and welcome to Drive Time right here on Talk. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan and I'll be your host for 3 thrilling hours of news, views and topical debate all the way to 7 o'clock. Get on the show, get it off your chest, get on the phone and call me on 03444 99 1000. Or you can WhatsApp voice note me on the same number and I promise to play your message out. It is Tuesday, June the 16th. Here's what's coming up. A sunny day in central London and a group of Muslims crouched down to pray right outside the Ministry of Defence. Their al fresco act of Islamic worship unfolded close to the memorials to Afghanistan and Iraq. But according to Tory MP and former Downing Street Chief of Staff Nick Timothy, this was a provocative demonstration of global Muslim power over the British state. Timothy says that, like the mass praying sessions in Trafalgar Square and at Birmingham Park, where a massive 30,000-strong crowd paid homage to Allah, this sort of theatrical, open-air Islamic worship should be banned in Britain. Clearly, laying their prayer mats out right by the MOD was no accident. It was deliberate. Is Nick Timothy right to call for a ban on public Muslim praying? 03444 99 1000. Also on today's show, the sinister story of how producers of a BBC children's show met with migrant charity chiefs to allegedly brainwash kids into positive thoughts about asylum seekers. The BBC insists these kind of meetings are normal, and in no way did hooking up with left-wing charity workers influence the show. Why meet them at all, then? 03444 99 1000. In other news, another day, another appalling set of mistakes by social workers whose failure to spot the signs contributed to the horrific death of Preston Davey, the little baby sexually abused to death by his depraved adoptive gay parents. Were questions not asked of these two paedophile perverts because they were gay men? Were they prioritised to avoid accusations of homophobia? You know, that old thing. After this poor little kid's shocking murder, what the hell happened here? 03444 99 1000. Also, on today's action-packed show, right-wing activist young Bob joins me later to discuss his vicious beating at the hands of a gang of yobs. Bob, real name Thomas Moffat, was rushed to hospital with concussion, but he lived to tell his tale, and will, to me at 4:45. In other news, a dramatic development in the strange case of the Putney pusher. 9 years after a jogger was caught on camera, apparently randomly pushing a female morning commuter into the path of an advancing bus on Putney Bridge, cops have arrested a 44-year-old millionaire banker who is said to have connections to royalty. He was nabbed on suspicion of GBH, but police also found him to be allegedly in possession of illegal drugs. Is this long-running mystery about to finally be solved? 03444 499 1000. Plus today, Super Nanny Jo Frost is standing by with her thoughts on Two-Tier Kia's partial social media ban for under 16s. It's not a total ban. The kids are still allowed to use Blue Sky, the left-wing site of which Starmer fully approves. So he's just banning the sites that he doesn't like. Isn't that special? Isn't that tyrannical? 03444 99 1000. And finally, the government eco-quango that has put a death warrant on the lives of the Dartmoor ponies who've been there semi-wild for 4,500 years. These eco-zealots, these environmental zealots, want to kill 9 out of 10 of these beloved little horses to allegedly protect habitats, the landscape and other animals. Equine genocide. Don't let this mad mass murder happen. Let's not let this happen. Killing horses to save the environment. No, thank you very much. That's cruel. That's genocide. Don't do that. 0344 499 1000. All that and so much more, so don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Tuesday afternoon together. Let's go straight over to my first guest. He is the Senior Fellow at the New Culture Forum, Philip Kisley. Welcome, Philip.
Hi, Kev. How are you doing? All right.
I'm good. Now, you and I discussed only yesterday this rather sinister, covert government department, RISU, which is deployed to marshal our thoughts, to make sure that we don't get too furious, you know, after people try to behead people on the streets of a British city, after a kid dies due to anti-white police racism, to make sure that we stay calm. So there's a unit that goes around doing this, putting flowers, peace flowers, at the scenes of terrorist atrocities. They plant stories in the press, pacifist stories in the press. They even once hired a boy band to go around singing anti-extremist songs. They try to marshal our thoughts. They try to make sure that, as in after the Manchester Arena bombing, we don't look back in anger. Well, bad news, folks, because we do. We look back, if I can put it this way, in a state of pure cold rage. Now, so sinister government department aimed at policing our thoughts, making us a thought police outfit, trying to make us feel the convenient way for the government. It makes it easier to govern if we're all compliant and we stay calm and say, oh, we don't really mind that somebody was beheaded on our streets. We just hope it doesn't happen again. Let's all sing, don't look back in anger. Balls to that. Right, here we move on to the state broadcast of the BBC. You're going to love this, Philip. Charity, the producers of a kids' TV show on the BBC met with migrant charity workers, charity chiefs devoted to helping asylum seekers. I mean, nothing wrong with that, I guess. Well, nothing wrong with charities devoted to asylum seekers. Now, what on earth were the producers of a BBC children's show doing meeting these charity workers who merely look after the interests of migrants and asylum seekers? Now, the obvious implication here is that this show, it's called Pickle Storm, is conniving with left-wing pro-migrant charity workers to brainwash young viewers into a positive attitude towards asylum seekers. Now, we know brainwashing goes on by left-wing teachers at school, an extremely worrying syndrome. You know about that, Philip. You're a man of academia. Now we see that potentially our state broadcaster, television producers, are colluding with left-wing pro-migrant charities to brainwash children. The BBC denies this. It says this is normal. Well, if it's normal, they say, oh, they didn't in any way influence the programme. Well, why did they meet with them then?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's normal to them because that's what they do all of their time. They spend their time with left-wing lobby groups, charities, think tanks, and all the rest of it. This is the BBC, remember, Kev. It's supposed to be impartial. It's not supposed to be biased. Yet all we get all the time from the BBC is this propaganda that is just blurted out. You know, they lie, they tamper with what President Trump says, and now they're targeting children. I think the broader context is really important here, and you mentioned education, because children simply cannot get away from this stuff. Okay, it's not just the schools, it's the third-party providers that go into schools, which are basically unchecked. There are thousands and thousands of them to deliver this stuff, especially around gender stuff, but also around race and refugee stuff and all of that kind of thing. So that's happening at school. They come home and the state broadcaster is beaming this stuff onto their laptops, onto their televisions, into their front rooms and bedrooms. It's really sinister. Now, if the BBC came out and said, oh, well, we've been meeting with lots of right-wing charities and we've been doing lots of stuff with reform and all the rest of it, then you would say, all right, so what's happening here then? What have you come up with that is balanced? But the real fact is that what we're getting is our children are being indoctrinated at school and at home. They cannot get away from it, and it is having a massively detrimental impact, not only on their well-being and mental health, but also on their intellect as well, because what they can't do is indulge in critical thinking because there's no space for it. All they are getting is left-wing propaganda, and this is obviously, it's serving the government's crisis with the open borders here. What it's doing is preparing these children for a lifetime of trouble with open borders. And frankly, we should be making a huge amount of fuss about it. This is the state broadcaster, for God's sake.
Yeah, and the main charity involved, Philip, is called HERD. They have, that's HERARD, not the other type of herd. They've received more than £4.5 million in grant funding since they were formed in 2021. They and other charities lobbied this CBBC programme, Pickle Storm, this is aimed at children around about the age of 7. They lobbied the programme to impact. They wanted it to impact the framing of migration. This sort of covert meetings between these left-wing migrant charities and television programme producers goes on quite a lot. The campaigners have also persuaded Coronation Street and various other programmes of, shall we say, projecting a very positive image of our asylum seeker friends. Now, I want to just get your take on this. This is breaking news, major news, I would suggest. Sailors on a Russian warship, Philip, have fired warning shots today at a yacht that came near it in the English Channel. The Press Association is reporting that a Russian warship has opened fire on a yacht, presumably a leisure cruiser yacht, in the English Channel. Now, this is going to test Keir Starmer's defence resolve again. He's got to do something about this, hasn't he?
Well, yeah, this is the Russians trying their arm once again and seeing what they can get away with and toying with us and playing with us because they know they can toy and play with us because we have no meaningful deterrent. So I was just interested when you were just saying that because I was thinking about another story about Andy Burnham and Keir Starmer. Now, neither of these men are trusted at all with our defence, OK? Both are equally, people just think they're both a joke, which means we are vulnerable. We are vulnerable to rogue states. And if this isn't the first time the Russians have done similar kinds of things, but it seems to be getting more extreme and more provocative. They are in the English Channel, for God's sake. So this is very worrying. I'm interested what our response will be. I think it will be ridiculous. I think it will demonstrate our weakness, and once again we find ourselves actually vulnerable and isolated because at the moment Keir Starmer seems to be having all sorts of quarrels with President Trump about everything from social media to the Middle East. So again, it comes down to this word vulnerability, and I'm really concerned. I'm concerned about now. I'm concerned about Russia, but Russia isn't the only rogue state out there. And if they see that they can get away with this stuff, if they see that we are powerless, then God knows what could happen. This is really, really concerning.
I'll tell you, this is a direct result of it's obviously some kind of retaliation against the seizing, the performative seizing of that Russian tanker the other day, or the Shadow Fleet tanker, where Starmer pathetically tried to say, hey, look, I'm tough, we can defend the nation, just by sending a few soldiers onto a kind of defenceless, pretend Russian tanker. So, you know, I mean, he did that, now they've done this. And they're going to keep doing this because they read the papers, they watch the news, they know that Keir Starmer and his hopeless government have defence cut us down to a position where we cannot defend Britain. We are incapable of defending this nation. Russia knows it, and this will just be the start. They're taunting us, and we can't really do anything about it because Keir Starmer has left us with no real defence of this nation. This is an utter scandal.
Yeah, I mean, they know how much we spend, but also, or how much we don't spend. Right, that's what it is. But also, they know we're demoralised as a nation because they know that if there is any more spending on our defence, it will come from taxation. Rather from very sensible things like cutting welfare, dealing with the public sector and stopping foreign aid or drastically reducing foreign aid. So all of these things play into this kind of equation. And it isn't just about, like I say, it's chancing their arm. It's more than that. It's playing with the whole nation. It's kind of mind games, isn't it? And if you make these empty gestures, as Keir Starmer did, you leave yourself vulnerable because there is nothing to back it up. We're spending next to nothing on defence, and the only way we would get out of that, as far as these socialists are concerned, is by taxing us all to the hilt. This is really, really worrying. It's really worrying on a national security level, most obviously. But if we look to the future and we look to see how defence spending might increase, then it's really worrying on an economic level, and it's, as I say, it's beleaguering to the country.
Yeah, indeed. Now, let me read a little bit more of this breaking news story that a Russian warship has fired warning shots at a yacht in the English Channel. This is what the Press Association is reporting. Sailors on a Russian warship fired warning shots today at a yacht that came near it in the English Channel. The incident on Tuesday morning is understood to have involved the Russian frigate Admiral Grigorovich in the waters between the Isle of Wight and Normandy in France, of course. British and French ships are mobilising in response to the incident. That is according to The Sun. Well, I just think, Philip, we've got to go in just a second, but this is just going to continue. This proves what we've all been saying. If you project an image of defence vulnerability, like Keir Starmer has done in spades by not spending any money on defence and refusing to commit more, you know, both his defence secretary and defence minister resigning in fury over this. The Russians will have spotted that too. They are going to taunt us day in, day out, because they know we can't really do anything about it. This is a sad state. Britannia rules the waves, not anymore.
No, I mean, when you have a government that is riddled by backbenchers who are obsessed with student politics, when you have people who are interested in unilateral disarmament, when you have pacifists in your government, sooner or later, those people have to face reality. Now, there is nothing more brutal, more stark, and more real than a Russian warship, for God's sake. And this is a handful of miles away from our coast. We need to be concerned, and the opposition really need to push the government on this. Quite simply, we need to spend more money on defence, Kev.
Yeah, let's just put this into sharp focus. A Russian warship this morning fired shots, opened fire in the English Channel a few miles off the coast of the Isle of Wight. Starmer, hang your head in shame. This is a disaster. Philip, great to talk to you. We'll talk again very soon. That's Philip Kisley there from the Senior Fellow at the New Culture Forum. Let me know what you think about this Russian warship. This is an escalation. They're going to taunt us like this. They're going to carry on. And we are going to look increasingly pathetic while that little man, Starmer, preens himself at G7. You can see the contempt on the face of Donald Trump. What has he done to this country? That pathetic little man. 03444991000. One thing that is allowed in this country is mass open-air praying by Muslims, and at least one Tory MP thinks it should be banned. You remember Trafalgar Square, where thousands of them gathered for that open praying session. Meanwhile, on the same day in a Birmingham park, 30,000 Islamic worshippers gathered to pray under the stars, as it were, al fresco worship. Now, we're going to show you a picture after the break of a group of Muslims deliberately putting down their prayer mats right outside the Ministry of Defence. That's a provocative act. And Nick Timothy says it should be banned. What do you think? We'll show you that picture. We'll discuss the story. 03444991000. Back in a mo.
I'm genuinely disgusted when people continue to point out failure after failure after failure and do not provide balanced analysis of the deliverable of services like the police. What I don't see from reform is them standing next to some of these people that they continually criticise and saying, actually, they've made a mistake here. There is a requirement for a review and we must get through it. But I'd also like to thank the police for doing an excellent job at stopping the riots, doing this, breaking this criminal gang, doing the hard work they do day in, day out. And I think we take it for granted.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Smash the gangs! One in, one out. My government will solve the migrant crisis. Well, they didn't do too well yesterday. 710 migrants crossed the channel illegally in small boats. So things may come and things may go, but the migrant crisis under Labour not only goes on forever, it gets worse and worse and worse. Robert Bates from the Centre for Migration Control will join me later in the show to discuss this and other stories. Now, let's get back to our agenda, and I want to show you this picture if you're watching on TV. If you're not, I'll explain it. Basically, it's a group of Muslims laying down their prayer mat. There they are, laying down their prayer mats and crouching down, praying to Allah. That, folks, is the Ministry of Defence. Right by the Ministry of Defence. Now, just off camera there are apparently memorials to Iraq and Afghanistan. So you could argue that they were paying homage to those great countries. But I don't think so. This is the Ministry of Defence. They don't need to pray there. And Nick Timothy, he calls this a deliberate political act of domination. You remember there were thousands, about 3,000 or so, Muslims gathered in Trafalgar Square a couple of months back for al fresco praying, open-air worship. And on that same day, I think it was a place called Heaton Park in Birmingham, 30,000 Islamic worshippers paid homage to Allah in the open air. Why do they have to do this? Either way, whatever you think about this, Nick Timothy says it should be banned because it is part of the Muslim creed. He says there is absolutely no need to pray outside the Ministry of Defence. Public praying is done so that Islamists can show us who's in charge and to show other Muslims and the wider public that the authorities will bend to their will. Do you think he's right? Should we ban this? 03444991000. What in the hell are they doing praying right outside the MOD? You know what they're doing. I think I know what they're doing. Let's talk to journalist Khadija Khan. Khadija, welcome to the show as always.
Thank you so much, Kevin, for having me on.
What do you make of this picture? I mean, you know, Muslims got this thing where at a certain time they are supposed to get down and pray to Allah and put their mats in the direction of Mecca or something like that. You know, I don't mind that if that's part of the ritual, part of the religion. But, you know, you can't say this is random and accidental, that they go to the Ministry of Defence to publicly pray in the open air. Do you agree with Nick Timothy that this is a provocative act of political domination?
I think Nick Timothy is absolutely right to criticize the display of Islamic ritual in public space. His concerns about the display of Islamic rituals in public spaces are spot on. The point that ritual prayer in shared civic spaces is inappropriate and better confined to places of worship should not be a controversial thing to say. I'm not speaking on behalf of Nick Timothy, but as it appears that he did not comment on Muslims as people, he did not question their right to worship or call for restrictions on personal belief. What he did is raise a concern about the appropriateness of religious ritual in shared civic spaces. And this is a legitimate question in any secular democracy like that of the UK. The reality is that majority of the people in this country do not want religious influence in politics and in public spaces. People, they have a right to criticize any behavior or action in public that is at odds with British way of life. And as you just mentioned, there was that this place is a Ministry of Defence. It is a symbolic gesture rather than an act of religiosity, in my opinion. Just like praying outside a Jewish girls' school in New York is a meaningful gesture.
Yeah.
So I think this excessive display of one particular religion in politics and public spaces is not merely a religious act anymore when it is performed with such symbols and gestures.
Yeah, this is quite clearly theatrical. This is a performative demonstration. Hey, we can pray wherever we like. If we were a self-respecting nation, officials from the Ministry of Defence or maybe even the police would have said, you go and pray somewhere else. Maybe, I don't know, here's a thought. Why don't you try your mosque? There's an idea. So Nick Timothy says there is quite obviously no need to pray here. He's absolutely right, isn't he? The decision to do so is symbolic and pointed. It is not welcome. We have freedom of religion in this country, which is why there are mosques. But we are not a Muslim country, and this is not welcome. It should be stopped. Now, I wouldn't want to ban Muslims from praying in the open air because, as I said earlier, you know, it is a part of their religion. If at a certain time they are called upon to lay down their prayer mat, face Mecca and pray to Allah. I don't mind that aspect of it, but if they're going to organise it along the lines of, right, let's get 3,000 people into Trafalgar Square, let's get 30,000 people into Heaton Park, let's get a group of Muslims right outside the Ministry of Defence. They are using these gatherings, these religious worship gatherings, as a political gesture. That's what they're about. They're political gestures saying we can do what we like and you can't stop us.
I think it's very much clear and obvious, and it is also important to mention that a vast majority of British Muslims, they are not taking to the streets to offer
it's a very good
Islamic
point.
rituals. Likewise, you will see people are not casually offering prayers on the streets in Muslim majority countries. Nothing in Islam requires its adherents to organize Islamic ritual prayers in public spaces, because it is believed that mosques are built for a purpose. And to practice religion freely, there are places of worship in this country as well. And in this particular case, a mosque was within walking distance. So there is no excuse for this action except to politicize one's personal religious belief. And I find it really disturbing that whenever somebody dares to question anything associated with and related to Islam, people from left, right, center, they start attacking that individual. Too many, they seem afraid to uphold the secular democratic values that we espouse as a society. In modern Britain, it seems there are some subjects that can be discussed, and there are other subjects that cannot be discussed, at least not honestly, without inviting a storm of outrage. And in my opinion, this outrage is a performative outrage, and this outrage sickens me, not in the least because it reeks not of principled politics or constructive criticism, but naked opportunism.
Yeah, now, you made a very good point there, Khadija, and we got to stress that. You know, the vast majority of Muslims, you know, pray in the normal way. They don't go to particular sites to make political points. I would suggest, I don't know these people, but I would suggest they're probably Islamist extremists who want to show their superiority over the Ministry of Defence. One last question to you. You grew up, you're a disaffected Muslim, as it were. You grew up in a strict Muslim household in Pakistan. Is it, in your experience, part of the Muslim ethos that this religion, or at least the extremists in it, want to turn it into the dominant political and religious force in the entire world, that they want to dominate states?
I think it's very obvious if you look at Pakistani society, where religious zealots, they try to assert the superiority of their understanding of their religion onto the wider society by organizing in a like mass gathering, whether it is about offering prayer or, you know, having religious processions. They do it there on a daily basis, you can say, and people are intimidated when they see these kind of gatherings around them, even in a country like Pakistan. And if we talk about the UK, I see this is not an isolated incident. First of all, we have to understand this. There are individual Muslim politicians who are advocating for Islamic blasphemy laws through the back door and promoting the term Islamophobia, which is largely used to smear dissent and ring-fence Islam. Then there are Ramadan celebrations that last for 30 consecutive days, during which the Mayor of London organizes a massive iftar event on Trafalgar Square. And at this event, the Shahada was pronounced, which effectively negates and falsifies other religions. Furthermore, women were pushed to the back row, demonstrating a blatant manifestation of religious misogyny. And this situation, in my opinion, has likely emboldened individuals to openly now offer prayer in public spaces and, you know, asserting their presence. And I would even go further to say that this kind of excessive display of religiosity has even emboldened certain section of Muslim communities to operate according to their own cultural and religious norms often at the expense of established laws, fundamental human
There's
rights,
something
and
not
essential
right here.
values.
There's something absolutely not right here, Khadija. I've got to move on, but it's very good to have you on the show, as always. Well said. Khadija Khan there, disaffected Muslim journalist. Should these public displays of religiosity, these Muslim open-air praying sessions, obviously deliberately targeted at places that are quite provocative, should they be stopped? Should they be banned, as Nick Timothy suggests? 03444991000. Next up, we're going to talk about Preston Davey, the poor little 13-month-old baby who was sexually abused to death by his gay male adoptive parents. A modern horror story. That next. Stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's talk about Preston Davey, the poor little 13-month-old baby who was murdered by his gay male adoptive parents who sexually abused him to death. I've been around the block a few times, but sometimes stories come up that absolutely shock even me. Naturally, behind this modern horror story, this shocking saga, we learned that social workers and medical staff missed many signs that this kid was in trouble, taken 3 times to hospital before his death. With bruises. Each time the authorities brushed this aside, saying, oh, well, these are normal bruises for a kid learning to walk. Were these gay guys given special privileges? Were they treated leniently because the authorities were scared of accusations of homophobia? I don't know the answer to that question, but I'm going to hazard a guess. The answer is yes. Let's talk to former DCI Met Police ex-head National Counter-Terrorism Security Officer, Chris Phillips. Chris, I would wager you too have been round the block a few times, but this story is just so shocking that these 2 guys, clearly not vetted properly, were allowed to adopt this little baby. You wonder whether or not they were put at the head of the queue over heterosexual couples because, got to treat them well because otherwise we might be accused of homophobia. And then we learn that this kid was regularly taken to hospital with bruising and God knows what before he finally died. Now, yesterday, one of his parents, Jamie Varley, was found guilty of murder, assault by penetration, child cruelty, sexual assault of a child, and making and distributing indecent photos. His partner, John McGowan Fazalaki, was found guilty of allowing the death of a child, 2 charges of child cruelty and 1 of the sexual assault of a child. They're going to be sentenced on Thursday. Shame we haven't got the death penalty anymore, isn't it?
It's quite horrendous, Kevin. This is one of the worst stories you could possibly have. It's only 4 months that little boy was in their hands, and all these things happened. And you have to ask some questions. Yes, we know that social services have been hollowed out by cutbacks, just the same as all the other services that we have across the UK. But to not even pick up that this little boy was suffering so badly is just horrendous.
And you also wonder, don't you, to adopt a kid, quite rightly, there are a lot of hurdles you have to get over. You are quizzed, you have to fill in forms left, right and centre, interview, blah, blah, blah. They even, until not long ago, they didn't allow kids, say a white kid, to be billeted with black parents or vice versa. You know, they were very, very scrupulous about trying to put kids into the right sort of family atmosphere that they thought was best for the kid. Now, nothing wrong with gay parents, I've got no problem there. But they should be subjected to the same scrutiny as everyone else. And I can't help suspecting that they weren't, because the authorities would have been frightened of being accused of homophobia. So I reckon they got this kid too easily. They clearly should never have had that kid. And then the hospital and social workers did nothing, even though he was constantly being taken to hospital. This is just dreadful.
It is dreadful from start to finish. And the simple fact that clearly both men have got issues, it will be interesting to see what their backgrounds are and what's happened in their past, and whether or not there's any inclination something like this could have been on the cards with these two. But the man, it almost seems like a mental illness. He was off his head, and to do these things in such a short space of time, that poor kid had no chance whatsoever. And yes, the social workers should have been identifying the fact that they're not suitable, surely. But you're right. For the little child to be going to hospital and nothing gets done, well, that's just appalling. And
in terms of these two monsters, have you ever come across depravity quite as bad as this? It's a baby, for God's sake. They adopt a baby so they can sexually abuse the poor little thing to death. As I say, I've seen some shocking things. I've come across some, in my checkered career, some terrible things. I think this might be the worst thing I've ever encountered.
Kevin, there are some very, very evil, pernicious, evil people out there. We see it from time to time. They pop up. Invariably, it's very difficult to catch them until they've done something incredibly bad, because the society doesn't necessarily think that people are that bad, are that evil. But surely, as well, in the first 4 months of a child being placed with two people who've never had a child before, there should be some real close scrutiny about how that child is. And that seems to be a missing link from this, that they weren't being checked. And why weren't they being checked? And we need to know that. Is this normal, or is it something that's just happened because they were fearing homophobic, being labelled as homophobic?
As I say, that's pure speculation on my part, and indeed yours, Chris, but I bet you a pound to a pinch of salt, we're bang on the money. I bet you we are exactly right. This was another case. If it's a person of colour, someone ethnic, if it's a gay person, they get priority because the authorities are terrified of being accused of discriminatory prejudice. It's the scourge of this country right now, and it cost this poor kid his life, his little life. I can't believe it. I'm heartbroken. Chris, great to talk to you, though. Thank you very much for coming on. Chris Phillips there, former head of the National Counter-Terrorism Unit at Scotland Yard. Your thoughts? What happened to this kid? How did we let that happen? How did those guys, those two monsters, how did they get a baby? How were they able to adopt that baby? They're absolutely depraved. They must have been able to spot that. 03444991000. We're going to go to break now. And after the break, we're going to talk to young Bob, the activist, the right-wing activist, who's been viciously beaten up in Manchester. We'll show you some footage, high and low light, shall we say, of the footage of that poor Bob's beating. His real name's Thomas Moffat. He joins us after these messages to discuss this disturbing story. That next. Stick around.
I'm genuinely disgusted when people continue to point out failure after failure after failure and do not provide balanced analysis of the deliverable of services like the police. What I don't see from Reform is them standing next to some of these people that they continually criticise and saying, actually, they've made a mistake here. There is a requirement for a review and we must get through it. But I'd also like to thank the police for doing an excellent job at stopping the riots, doing this, breaking this criminal gang, doing the hard work they do day in, day out. And I think we take it for granted.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's go straight over to Thomas Moffat, but you may know him as young Bob, the right-wing political activist who suffered one hell of a beating. Welcome, Thomas.
Great to be back on your show under fortunate circumstances.
Yeah, look at you. Look at you. I can see your face is badly scratched and bruised. Well, first of all, you were up in Makerfield. I don't want to get into the political by-election campaign, but you're obviously up there. I know you're a supporter of Restore Britain. But what happened? What happened?
Yeah, so to sort of financially justify spending the entire week in Makerfield, I decided, whilst I'm up north, being a southerner myself, I do some content and do some stands, as I constantly do on the street, talking about my vocal support of Restore Britain, of course, being a national political party. I think it's quite sensible to talk about quite divisive issues because political tribalism is a huge problem. And whilst talking about mass deportations and securing our borders, unfortunately, two lads who were chanting stand up to racism chants and were left-wing agitators decided to egg on a gang of thugs to attack me. They stole several of my camera equipment. They kicked me, they kept on punching me. I ended up with a concussion and I actually passed out halfway through just for a few seconds. It's probably one of the scariest attacks I've ever had. I mean, I've always had...
Oh, you've had a few. I mean, this syndrome isn't new, but I know you had one down in London not so long ago, but this one is the worst, isn't it?
By far. And it genuinely shows, like, for example, in America, where this format is incredibly popular, They just have an issue with the violent left, and of course you saw some aspects of that in the attack. But in the UK, you also have a sectarian issue, both politically and demographically. People don't want to talk about the issues of migration, and that is because of the left-wing indoctrination and the capturing of our institutions. People believe that when we talk about mass deportations of people who are net drains to the economy or don't socially integrate, that means they're deporting their mate at school, for example. And what that causes is the vilification of people on the right, and that incites violence. Because if I was a member of the left and I believed that my fellow right-wing member was a neo-Nazi, of course I would attack him.
Well, not necessarily physically, surely.
Oh, no, I'm just saying that if you are of the cloth of the left and you've been indoctrinated to believe that this person incites violence, the natural response for most people is to be violent.
Yeah, now, was this actually in Manchester, in central Manchester? And what had you actually done? What were you actually doing at the point when all hell broke loose?
Yeah, so we'll be releasing some of the footage. We couldn't recover the last minutes of when I actually were attacked. Unfortunately, a lady who was actually egging them on filmed it and for whatever reason published it. But what happened is I was discussing with people quite amicably, met some people who are actually fans and supporters, which is surprising up north. And halfway through, a group of lads, egged on by two women, just grabbed me. I had to stand up, defend myself, and I was brutally attacked by a gang of thugs.
I think some arrests have been made. I should just read this out, if you don't mind. It's a statement from Greater Manchester Police. Officers were called to an incident on Market Street, Manchester, yesterday at around 3:20 p.m. following reports of a disturbance. Upon arrival, officers spoke to a man in his 20s. Are you in your 20s yet? You're not, are you? Anyway, you obviously look older than you are. Officers spoke to a man in his 20s who reported he had been assaulted. He was treated at the scene for his injuries. 3 people, 2 juveniles and 1 person in their 20s have been arrested on suspicion of robbery and assault. They remain in custody for questioning. Inspector Lee Ferguson from our city centre neighbourhood policing team said, "We are aware of videos being shared on social media of the incident and we are continuing to review all available footage to identify those involved. If anyone has any information, please get in touch." You said at first, Thomas, that you thought, well, you said that you were attacked by foreigners. Were they foreigners or were they? Yeah,
so one of the main issues that they had was obviously that they came from a migrant background, and I was actually talking with a lad on deportations, and what I said to you before was that the left use the issue of migration to enact sectarianism. So what happens is we talk about mass deportation, we talk about people who should be deported based on the fact that net drains to the economy. We didn't democratically consent for these people to live here, and a lot of them import an alien culture. And people see that, the left use that generalised statement, and they believe that we want to deport all people, which therefore means that whenever we talk about mass deportations as an incredibly divisive issue, the immediate response for some of these people are, I'm a migrant, therefore this is going to affect me, therefore I'm going to fight.
Indeed. Now, I've got to ask you this. Why do you do this? Because you were in the Southampton, weren't you, a couple of weeks ago, the disturbances after the sad death of Henry Novak. And I know that you got, I think I interviewed you after you had some trouble in Tower Hamlets. Why do you put yourself in this danger? What are you trying to achieve there, Thomas?
Well, I'm certainly not trying to be achieved to get hit, but I don't know. I think I'm pretty ignorant. I just believe that going into public space and talking about issues I'm passionate about shouldn't be met with violence, and I really have a passion for it. I started out Speaker's Corner. I don't go there anymore because, unfortunately, someone, I'll say allegedly for the sake of the programme, threatened to stab me and possessed a knife, and the police didn't do anything about it. So I am trying to take precautions. However, I just have a passion in the public space to talk to people. What
does your fiancé and your parents, what do they think about this? I mean, I've become friendly with you over the years. I'm a bit worried about you, Thomas. You're putting yourself at risk.
Well, someone said to me, don't be the most famous person in the graveyard. So I don't want to put myself and become useless, because obviously I'm pretty useless dead. But they are quite rightfully concerned, especially considering sometimes people post the attack without me even being able to warn them in advance that you're going to see one of your loved ones being beaten up.
And you went to hospital, you got concussion, but you're feeling okay, basically, yeah?
Yeah, been able to go back on the campaign trail. I still feel as high as a kite. I'm very dizzy and disorientated. I'm actually pretty impressed to have been able to keep a relatively consistent vocabulary throughout this discussion.
The day you lose your vocabulary will be the day hell freezes over. Let me ask you this, though. I'm sure you're going to find this question very tedious. You're a supporter of Restore Britain. You've been in Makerfield campaigning for Rebecca Shepherd, who is Rupert Lowe's candidate there. Let me ask you the standard issue question. Wouldn't it be better if Rupert and Rebecca, as it were, stood down so that Andy Burnham doesn't win that by-election and change the course of this nation's history? Wouldn't it be better if Rupert did the decent thing and sort of united the right so we can defeat, or so that supporters of the right can defeat Andy Burnham?
I would say that, according to Nigel Farage, we're only going to get 1% of the vote in each constituency. And it's anti-democratic to consider that we're throwing the hat at it, and it's going to be an anti-establishment option at the ballot box. And if people decide to vote, I mean, for example, let's compare Gorton and Denton with Advance UK and Restore Britain. If you look what happened there, Nick Buckley was squeezed, so no one voted for him, even though he was third place in the Manchester mayorals. So it clearly shows that in national by-elections where people are squeezed to vote for the most electorally viable party, if they're not invested in the vision that Reform UK are offering, which obviously means that we're not vote splitters, we're competition. And that's why we need to make a statement in this by-election. Now, look, with Burnham, I feel like there's a big fear with him. I don't think he will get elected, but if he does, he doesn't have a lot of friends in Westminster. I mean, the last time he was in Parliament, that was just before the purge, although all of the progressive Labour Party members, which means that when he comes in, he's going to have to find friends and find friends fast.
Yeah, interesting. Well, listen, Thomas, I'm really glad you're OK. I mean, be careful, all right? I'm asking you that as a friend. Be careful. Don't put yourself at risk. But good of you to come on, and let's talk again soon. Always a pleasure to talk to you. Thomas Moffat there, alias Young Bob, on his beating in central Manchester. We talked about the Makerfield by-election, which means broadcasting rules dictate I must give you all the candidates. You must make up your own minds who you want to vote for. Will it be any of the following? Jake Austin, Liberal Democrats, Count Bimface Party. Andy Burnham, the Labour Party. Dan Clark, the Libertarian Party. John Dyer, Independent. Ed Gemmell, Climate Party. Paul Gould, Independent. Alan Howland, Lord Hope, the official monster raving Looney Party. Robert Kenyon, Reform UK. Robert Pownall, Protect the Wild. Rebecca Shepherd, Restore Britain. Sarah Wakefield, Green Party. Peter Ward, Rejoin UK, the EU. Michael Winstanley, the Conservative Party. There you have it. After the break, it's Isabel Oakeshott. So join me then. Stay exactly where you are.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. In a little while, we're going to talk about the Putney Pusher. This was 9 years ago. This extraordinary video we'll show you of a guy jogging across Putney Bridge in London, across the Thames. Suddenly, for no apparent reason, he just turns and pushes. He just pushes this woman, a morning commuter, on a nice sunny day, pushes her in front of an advancing bus. There's been a 9-year search for this guy, so far to no avail. Looking at it now, watch this. Look at that. That bus driver is a hero, managed to avoid her, but he could have killed her. No one knows why that happened. No one knows why he did that. But a 44-year-old millionaire banker has been arrested. Apparently he's got connections to the royal family. And according to the police, he's been found in possession of dangerous drugs as well. Is that long-running 9-year-old mystery about to be solved? We'll talk about that in just a little while. First of all, though, let's go through some of the big stories of the day with my next guest. She is Talk's excellent international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Hi, Isabel.
Good afternoon.
Good to have you on the show. Well, first of all, this broke about an hour ago. Extraordinary sequence of events. A Russian warship has opened fire on a UK-registered yacht, presumably some kind of pleasure yacht, in the English Channel off the coast of the Isle of Wight. This happened around 11:40 a.m. this morning. Between the Isle of Wight and Normandy, and is understood to have involved the Russian frigate, the Admiral Grigorovich. That's the Press Association reporting out. The Sun is also all over this story, keeping us updated. Ministry of Defence spokesman said, "We are investigating reports of an incident in the Channel." Now, this comes a couple of days after Keir Starmer's performative seizure of that shadow fleet Russian ship in the Channel, saying, oh, the people say I've got problems with defence. No, look, we just seized a Russian tanker. You see, I can defend the nation. Yeah, great. But the Russians have been reading all the stories. They've been watching the news, and they know Starmer has starved this country of the defence money it needs to defend itself. They know that. And this kind of provocation, this kind of taunting is going to happen more and more and more because Russia and other bad actors who don't like us know that Starmer's negligence, the negligence of this lunatic Labour government, has left us defenceless. We are a sitting national duck. It's a disgrace.
Well, every single day when there are migrant crossings, we demonstrate our either lack of ability or lack of will to protect our own borders. And freedom of navigation underpins global trade. You know, you've got a right to, any country can put ships pretty much anywhere, but there are fundamental rules around that, and they certainly don't involve sending, shooting warning shots or otherwise at any other vessels. It's absolutely outrageous behaviour. But as you say, they didn't need John Healey to stand up and say what he said today as his resignation speech to know that the UK has been left completely defenceless. Starmer is just the latest in a long line of prime ministers that has prioritised just about everything else over defence at what turns out to be the most dangerous of times that we have seen for very, very many years. And it's not as if these prime ministers, successive prime ministers, have not been very vocally and starkly warned that this is the way the world is heading by umpteen military chiefs and defence experts. When I was writing about this way back in 2019, I co-authored a book called White Flag, which was essentially saying that the UK has raised the white flag in terms of its own defences. That was in 2019. Look where we are today. It's only got worse.
Much, much worse than we were in 2019. And it's getting worse. I mean, that little man, Keir Starmer, doing his Tarzan act down at the G7 in France, you know, beating, look, I'm the big leader of Britain, defence, yes, I've got it all covered. It's just, we're watching a kind of clown show as this nation declines. Britannia rules the waves. Now we've got Russian ships, warships, coming into the channel and opening fire because they don't care about us. They're not scared of us. They're just going to taunt us because of what this government has done to us as a nation. It has left us defenceless and spent all the money on welfare and migrants. Isn't that special?
It's actually terrifying, because if we have got now a position where hostile states, you know, we're essentially backing a war against Russia. So indirectly, we're at war with Russia. We've got a situation now where hostile states feel empowered just to mosey on down to the English Channel and start lobbing shots at pleasure boats. You know, I don't know how much more dangerous you can get than that. How much more warning is needed to demonstrate that we don't get to choose wars. Wars come to us. And when that happens, we are going to be utterly exposed.
It is unbelievable. Let's move on. Let's go. Got a lot to get through here. You're a mum. Wanted to get your thoughts on this, not just because you're a mother, but it will interest parents everywhere. There's a programme called Storm Pickle. Or is it Pickle Storm? It's a BBC children's show, CBBC. The Telegraph is reporting, and the BBC is confirming, that producers of this show held meetings with migrant charities, charity chiefs from migrant and asylum seeker charities, with a view, allegedly, to brainwashing its young viewers, the viewers of Pickle Storm, into a pro-migrant worldview. So this programme was exploited to change attitudes to asylum seekers among the young. The BBC said, BBC has full editorial control over its content. It is common practice across the media industry to engage with charities, among others, for research purposes and to help understanding different perspectives when working on programmes or news stories. Heard is the big charity that was involved in these meetings. It said Heard supports people from a wide range of backgrounds to share their own experiences in their own words and to help people working in our media and culture to represent those experiences fairly and accurately. They say they don't lobby the government, they don't lobby television companies, but BBC saying in no way did these people influence our show. Why did you meet them then?
Well, I mean, I think it's pretty demonstrable. The Telegraph's done a good job on this story, and they've exposed a number of examples in which pro-refugee charities, the kind of charities that campaign for the UK to spend even more taxpayers' money making refugees welcome. And that means all refugees, you know, basically assumed to be innocent and genuine until proven otherwise. And the Telegraph has exposed that these charities have been subtly trying to influence several BBC programmes, including and other TV output, including Coronation Street, which obviously has a massive audience, and they are claiming credit for a storyline which portrayed a refugee or asylum seeker, I'm not sure which, in obviously and naturally and of course predictably a very favourable light. This is the tip of the iceberg. You know, I'm extremely concerned about the scale of this that goes on in our schools. I think that we don't know the half of it. I think it's across the educational sector. I mean, having 3 children, 2 of whom are still at school, fairly young teenagers, I've seen this in their own UK schools, you know, where there are fundraisers for refugee and refugee welcome charities. You know, why? You know, shouldn't there couldn't there equally be a fundraiser for, homeless veterans, for example? Well, that doesn't seem to happen.
Secure Borders charity, something like that. Yeah, you wouldn't get that. They wouldn't be at schools. They wouldn't be having meetings with BBC children's programmes. This is a kind of sinister thing that is going on, kind of thought control, thought policing the attitudes of young people, steering an entire generations towards a kind of left-wing, migrant-friendly worldview that isn't going to do this country any good at all.
I think that's right. And I think, officially, it's not allowed to teach politics, to have any kind of biased politics in schools. And I've looked at the kind of letter of the law, as you like, on this, what teachers are told they can and can't do. But that is massively distorted. All day, every day, there are teachers up and down the UK who are basically seeking to inculcate their pupils with left-wing ideology. It's just not taught as party politics, but it's just brainwashing. That's what it is. And it should be illegal, but it is completely systemic, I think, in the UK education system.
Yeah, I tell you, we talked about this yesterday, but I'm still boiling furious about this. Starmer has not brought in a social media ban for under 16s. He's brought in a partial social media ban for under 16s. He has banned for under 16s all the social media sites that he doesn't like Twitter, or X as it's now called, because it's full of right-wing opinions and the kind of worldview that he doesn't like. But he hasn't banned for under 16s Blue Sky, because that's full of left-wing claptrap and the sort of socialist rubbish that he likes. It's outrageous. It's absolutely outrageous. Now, let me ask you about this, at the risk of having to read that bloody list of candidates one more time. But up in Makerfield, there may be, the tide might be turning a bit. There's a new Ipsos poll out today revealing that Andy Burnham's popularity rating, his approval rating, is plummeting. It's slumped to -7%, down from last month when it was when it was 15 points more, higher. So he is plummeting down the popularity charts. I would suspect because more and more stories are coming out. The guy can't tell us what the fiscal rules are. More and more stories are coming out like he may well make Ed Miliband the Chancellor and so on and so forth. I think the people of Makerfield are beginning to realise, hey, this guy might not be the one we want.
Well, even if he does win, and of course we can't possibly know who is going to win. We know what the polls are saying, but even if he does win, I don't think his ascent to number 10 is anything like to be taken for granted. I think that it does look very much as if John Healey and Al Carnes are on manoeuvres in some kind of joint operation. And wouldn't it be an extraordinary upset if whichever one of those two is planning to run, and I'm sure it's one or other of them, probably Al Carnes, wouldn't it be an extraordinary upset if they got the 81 or whatever it is that's required names to support them to run, and they defeated Andy Burnham? I mean, it's not beyond the realms of possibility. I know it seems unlikely because Al Carnes is a pretty new figure, relatively speaking, at Westminster, not a household name, relatively new figure within the Labour Party. But stranger things have happened. Can you imagine the egg on the face of Andy Burnham if he does manage to get to Westminster and then he doesn't make it to the top?
Well, I think that, Andy Burnham is a sort of hollow man. People looked upon him, oh, he's a chummy guy from the north. He moved back up to be with his own people, didn't want any more of this Westminster nonsense. He's a real man of the people. Went to Cambridge University, but apart from that, he's a man of the loves chips, gravy, pints, all of that. Well, that's good salesmanship. But I think the people of Makerfield, certainly the people of this country, are looking behind that carefully choreographed veneer, and they're seeing an empty politician who's just going to make this country even worse. He's going to make it even worse than Starmer has.
So for people that are exhausted and terrified by what's happened to this country after 14 years of Conservative rule and then this lot in power. It's not the end of days if Andy Burnham becomes Prime Minister, because for all the hype around him, you know, King of the North and all that twaddle, and, you know, he is more human. We've discussed this than Keir Starmer.
I'll give him that. Yeah.
But I think he'll very quickly be found wanting. It's going to be worse than more of the same. So what does that mean? It means that there'll be even more of a support, I think, for right of centre alternatives, whichever they may be.
Let's, you mentioned John Healey's resignation speech. Let's play a little clip and see if we can analyse what it's all about.
NATO has now said we must prepare for war with Russia within the next 5 years. This is the age of hard power and rising threat. This is not the moment for calibration or incremental change. This means bigger politics, bolder priorities, harder choices. And Britain's challenge now is the transformation and the rearmament of our armed forces. The Prime Minister knows what the country needs for defence. He spelled out the threat this month when he said, "It is our intelligence assessment and the assessment of other countries in NATO that there could be an attack by Russia on NATO as soon as 2030. So Britain must set the headmark of spending 3% on defence in 2030 and a clear path to 3.5% in 2035.
Tell you what, Isabel, when John Healey made that speech, I don't think he was aware that this morning a Russian warship opened fire in the English Channel, but that is worth bearing in mind. And in terms of what you were saying, you know, he's sitting alongside him there was his former deputy, the Defence Minister Al Khan's, a former military decorated hero, respect to him. But if those two are mounting a kind of covert leadership bid, I'll take John Healey as Prime Minister. I mean, he's the kind of Labour leader I could look up to, I could respect. Can't think of anyone else, but I could respect him.
So I don't know him really, or at least, I mean, I used to interact with him a little bit way back. I think in the tail end of the Blair Brown years. I think he was a sort of junior housing minister. Nice guy, never particularly exciting. You know, he didn't really have any profile at all. But I think he's very much shone in this job as Defence Secretary and has become someone that's actually acquired quite some political gravitas. And he is the first Defence Secretary to have actually followed through on what pretty much every Defence Secretary for the last 20 years has felt like doing and never actually done. You know, all of them say, well, you know, I wanted to resign, but I thought I was better at fighting it from the inside. All of them do that. He actually hasn't done that, and credit to him for that. But I just wonder whether there's been a deal between him and Al Khan's that it will actually be Al Khan's run. And that John Healey may back him as the kind of elder statesman. It was interesting about, you know, the number of people that was surrounding John Healey as he made that speech today. Far more than apparently were around Wes Streeting for a similar intervention that he made when he resigned.
Indeed, very interesting stuff. Listen, Isabel, thanks so much for coming on. Always good to have you as one of my star guests, obviously. That's Isabel Oakeshott, Talk's international editor. And I've got to do it again now. Every time I mention Makerfield, I've got to read this out. Broadcasting rules, folks. They're very sane. Right, here we go. Jake Austin, Liberal Democrats, Count Binface Party, Andy Burnham, the Labour Party, Dan Clark, the Libertarian Party, John Dyer, Independent, Ed Gemmell, Climate Party, Paul Gould, Independent, Alan Howling, Lord Hope, the official Monster Raving Loony Party, Robert Kenyon, Reform UK, Robert Pownall, Protect the Wild, Rebecca Shepherd, Restore Britain, Sarah Wakefield, Green Party, Peter Ward, Rejoin EU, Michael Winstanley, the Conservative Party. Can I imagine people saying, Anyone tune in to Kevin O'Sullivan this afternoon? Yeah, he spent the whole show reading out a list. Can't wait for that by-election to happen. Then we don't have to keep reading this thing out, do we? Next up, let's talk about the Putney Pusher. Is that 9-year-old mystery of the jogger who randomly, apparently, just pushed a woman in the path of an advancing bus? Is that mystery about to be solved? Somebody has been arrested. We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned.
We've got some breaking news that has just come in. talkSPORT have announced a brand new partnership in a developing story. We hear they've created So Good Lager right in time for football's big summer. Just in, we're hearing that So Good Lager will be pouring pints across all O'Neill's pubs and some of the best sports pubs across the UK. With the big kickoff just around the corner, you can find out where to get your hands on a fresh pint of So Good Lager at talksport.com/lager.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It was a strange case that gripped the nation and, in fact, went viral. It went global because nobody could work out what it was all about. 9 years ago, on a nice sunny morning in London, a jogger jogging across Putney Bridge, which goes across the Thames near Fulham, Chelsea. There he is, jogging away before work. And then he does that. He just randomly pushes that woman. I mean, how she didn't die is a miracle. The bus driver's a serious hero. Look at that. He manages to sort of take that bus away from her, and she only received minor injuries. He jogged off. Massive search. He's never been found. 9 years on, a 44-year-old millionaire banker, apparently with connections to royalty, has been arrested. Police say they allege they also found dangerous drugs in his possession. He remains under investigation. Now, is this case, this mystery, about to be solved? Let's talk to Dr. David Holmes, psychologist. Hi, David.
Hi.
Now, what I want to ask you is, we don't know the details of that, but it looks pretty much as if that is utterly random. Now, we're told, again, nobody's been charged. We don't know he's the perpetrator, but a 44-year-old millionaire banker, apparently with high connections, known to royalty, has been arrested and is being interviewed with a view to being charged with GBH, grievous bodily harm, for this shocking incident. Now, as I say, we mustn't sort of affect the case in any way, but what I wanted to ask you, David, is what is it? People do this, don't they? Sometimes in the spur of a moment, in a split second, somebody will do something without even thinking about it, sort of random, almost instinctive gesture that could ruin this guy's life, if you see what I mean. What's going on there? I mean, what would you think? If we accept that was purely random, why would he do that?
I think the word you were struggling for was impulsive.
Yes, that's right. I'm not very articulate, David. You know, give me a break.
Just suddenly you react to something or a situation, perhaps a situation you come across regularly. But on this occasion, something sparks anger, something sparks an action. I mean, you could be really lenient and say, oh, maybe he thought he was going to trip and put his hands out. I don't think so. No. And you say the guy caught is a banker. We can't assume he's guilty.
No, not at all, no.
But our image of a banker is somebody sitting behind a counter and not really being someone that would be violent or somebody involved in some horrendous misogynistic killing. But in this case, maybe he's not entirely just a banker. He's someone who's quite good at taking money from people. He's ex-army, I believe. So maybe we're getting the character wrong. Maybe this is somebody who is a little bit pushy, violent in normal life.
If it is him, you know, if it is him.
Yeah.
But what I'm thinking is, we've got to be very careful there, obviously. We don't know in any way that this man under arrest, 44-year-old billionaire banker, is indeed the culprit. But I'm thinking that maybe he's jogging away, she's slightly in his path or something. Yeah. And just, as you say, a kind of almost subconscious reaction, get out of my way, like that. Now, when he did that, whoever it was, there's the chance, if he's caught, if he's ever caught, that moment where he just went, boom, like that, get out of my way, that could ruin his life. It's extraordinary, isn't it?
It almost certainly will ruin his life if he's found guilty, because it was such a heinous crime as we see it. From his point of view, he probably couldn't see the bus. He was pushing someone who was obviously more in his way than the guy before her. And yeah, maybe he just lost his temper for a second, get out of my way, I'm fed up of walking into people, not realising he was pushing her.
That's what it is, David. I'm just looking at it. She's walking just off the pavement in the kind of jogging, cycling lane. And he's obviously sort of gone, get out of my way, and done that. And as I say, if this is the guy or whoever it is, if they ever get caught, this moment, this subconscious moment, just get out of my way, is going to ruin his life.
Utterly and completely. There's a big hate campaign against him prior to any knowledge of who he was. So this is somebody who's going to achieve notoriety at least, and I mean, attempted grievous bodily harm. He couldn't see the bus, but you could configure it as attempted murder when you look at the consequences.
I think they're going to try for GBH, but here's the deal. This is the definition, the very definition, I would suggest, of an unpremeditated crime.
This could be. We don't know. I mean,
maybe he knows that.
It could turn out that he's
his wife. The women. He's never liked her.
I don't think he recognised her, but he might have.
I don't think so, David. I'm being facetious.
No, because I think she would have recognised him, or at least in subsequent times, discovered who he was or had some connection. But I don't think that's the case. I think she just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. However, his act of aggression is something that could have just pushed somebody off the Eiffel Tower. It's not. It's not a simple, act of shouting at her or just slapping her arm or anything. This was an attempt to actually injure the person at least, and had to be, I think, should be dealt extremely harshly. And I would actually gamble on saying that he has some kind of record of
of a sort of a violent character. Well, it'd be very interesting, won't it, if it does turn out to be this millionaire banker or whoever it turns out to be. Fascinating for someone like yourself to look into his background and see what would lead to that. I used to do quite a lot of jogging myself before my body gave up, and I know what it is. Quite annoying when somebody steps out in front of you, but I like to think that I wouldn't go like that. But
well, I know I wouldn't.
Yeah, well, I don't know I wouldn't. I'm just going to hope that I wouldn't. David, excellent to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time. That's Dr. David Holmes, psychologist. Now, we're going to talk about the Keir Starmer's partial social media ban for under-16s tomorrow in a moment. And our guest is none other than Super Nanny Jo Frost. We'll see what she thinks about it. She's an expert on parenting, of course, was the host of that smash hit TV series, How to Bring Your Kids Up. So she knows about kids, she knows about bringing them up. I wonder what Jo Frost, Super Nanny, thinks of the under-16s social media ban. That next, stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, sadly, Super Nanny is super unavailable at the moment. We don't seem to be able to get our Zoom link together with Jo Frost. We're trying. We're having technical difficulties. If we can hook up with her, of course, we'll bring her to you right away. But in the meantime, let's continue with the show. As I say, my view is, never mind Super Nanny, never mind Jo Frost, this is Kevin O'Sullivan's view on the social media ban for under-16s. Far more important. I made it clear yesterday. I think this is not a social media ban for under-16s. It's a partial social media ban for under-16s. So all the social media sites like X, Facebook, Instagram, and all of those, TikTok, the ones that carry lots of content, opinions and worldviews that can be quite right-wing, very anti-Starmer, the ones that Keir Starmer doesn't like, they're all banned. But then you've got Blue Sky, which is where all the lefties go, all the soppy snowflake socialists go to agree on their ridiculous ideas. Blue Sky, that's not banned for under-16s because Keir Starmer likes it. Likes Blue Sky. It's not a social media ban. It is a partial social media ban, a disgraceful socialist political social media ban. 03444991000. Let's listen to a voice note. This is Paul on Russia.
So the Russians have fired on a little yacht in the English Channel. Well, they can do what they like, really, can't they? Because we can't even stop a couple of dinghies, let alone a Russian warship. Oh, anyway, at this stage, I'm not sure. I think the Russians would run the country better than Keir Starmer would.
I think you're right, Paul, but that's just as well, because they will be running the country very, very soon. They're lucky they got involved in a shootout with a British leisure yacht this morning, because yesterday they probably wouldn't have been able to find any bits of the English Channel that were free, were spare, because it was full of small boats, full of migrants coming across the Channel illegally again. More than 700 of them. The world record for a single day this year. So much for smash the gangs, one in, one out. Honestly, let's get rid of that guy. I don't care who they put in. As I said the other week, I'll have Diane Abbott over Keir Starmer. Anyone but Keir. He is utterly useless at absolutely everything. By the way, the father of that poor little girl who committed suicide due to social media bullying, he says that Keir Starmer has rushed his social media ban through, and that this kind of sledgehammer approach won't help anyone. Yeah, we're talking about Molly Russell, the kid who took her own life, bullied online. Her father, Ian Russell, has been running a big campaign to do something about this, but he says sledgehammering social media out of the way for under-16s is not the way to go about it. He accuses the Prime Minister of rushing into it. Of course he's rushing into it. He wants a legacy, my legacy, before he goes. He's not going to last much longer. So this will be his legacy, banning something. Socialists, they're so funny. They love banning stuff. I banned it! I banned it! Kids can't get on social media anymore. Oh, great. Well done, Keir. Have a gold star. Well, the point is they will. 60% of kids under the age of 16 in Australia have treated the social media, the government there, their social media ban like a blip. Just flipped over it, no problem at all. They're back on social media using VPNs and all that. So kids won't be banned. They'll just be legally banned. They'll still get onto it. So it's completely performative. Absolute nonsense. Let me know what you think. 0344 499 1000. No sign of Super Nanny Jo Frost. We'll try and get her on another day. Let's take some calls. Let's go to Tony in Lancashire. Hi, Tony.
Afternoon, Kevin. And thanks for taking my call. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, I'm just asking you. Yeah, I tell you what gets me. You're going on about defence earlier on. Why are we giving them money out to all these illegals? Hotels, housing, social housing, universal credit, benefits and everything, and getting all the freebies when all that money could have gone into defence.
That is the logical viewpoint, Tony, but this government prioritises welfare, £350 billion a year we spend on it, and rising. It prioritises welfare, it prioritises migrants, it prioritises net zero, and all that left-wing claptrap over the defence of the nation.
Net zero crap.
Well, yeah, I know. Well, so you were asking me why does the government do this? Because it's left-wing and because it's socialist, and they don't like spending money on defence.
Money being wasted once again. Money being wasted. Another thing.
Yeah, but I mean, you're not going to stop them doing it. It's all very well to yodel into the abyss, saying this is ridiculous. They shouldn't be doing this, but they're going to carry on because they're socialists and they're left-wing, and they don't care to spend any money on defence.
It's stupid, it is. Anyway, after what's been going on in Channel as well. Anyway, just another thing before I go. Yes, I think that prayer should be banned in front of MOD. Certainly.
Oh, yeah, there's the Muslim prayers. Yeah, I mean, if they're going to carry on with these kind of provocative acts, you know, praying, putting their prayer mats out right outside the MOD, we know what's going on there. If they're going to carry on like that, let's ban them. I mean, why not? Keir Starmer likes banning things. Why did he ban Muslims from praying provocatively out in the open. How about that? Listen, Tony, good to talk to you. Thank you very much. Get on the phone, give me a call. We're going to take some calls later in the show. 03444 991 1000. Looks as if Glenn is pointing out to me that Liz Kendall said on Sky News this morning that Blue Sky will be banned as part of the social media law. I hope that's true. It certainly wasn't the case yesterday. Perhaps they've seen that that doesn't make any sense. So if it's a full social media ban for under-16s, I don't support it. I think that's the job of parents. It's not the job of a government. They're not our mother. They're not our father. The socialists believe in mother government, raising children, raising families, looking after every aspect of our lives. That's what they believe in. If they're going to ban social media, it's got to be every site. But as of yesterday, we were told Blue Sky wasn't in it. We'll have to look into that. Let's go back to the phones and talk to Karen in Bournemouth. Hi, Karen. What would you like to say?
Hi, Kevin. It's about the killers of the baby.
Yeah, awful men.
Well, the thing is, because he was a teacher, the social worker would have assumed that they would have done all the checks and everything was fine in the beginning. They didn't follow it up, obviously. He should have been fired. So should have the doctors. Should have been thrown out instantly when they knew about it.
Knew about what exactly, Karen, do you mean?
The fact that what they did to the child could be done to the child. You know, they assumed because he was a teacher, he must love kids and be all right and everything else. So there's a sort of automatic assumption before they even go any further. And that sets their brain onto, OK, this must be OK, so we can carry it on quite nicely without any questioning. And the brain just closes down from that. But the thing that gets to me is the fact that these guys might get the greatest sentence in the world. The problem is we will be spending an absolute fortune keeping those two in isolation, separation from the general population.
Well, yeah, they're going to go to... Well, one of them's been done for murder. The other one's been done for... serious child sexual abuse charges. So both of them are going to jail. Both of them are going for jail for a very long time.
Yeah, but I would say we should leave them in the general population. We should.
What you mean? They don't get imprisoned for murdering a baby?
All the special privileges of being looked after because of what they've done. Leave them in the general population and let them do their own fighting for survival.
Yeah, well, that's one way of looking at it, Karen, but I think we have to punish people who murder babies and sexually abuse them, don't we? We do have to take away their liberty, I think.
Oh, yeah, no, I don't mean leave them free. I mean put them in jail.
All right.
But
well, that's where they're going.
Yeah, but the thing is, what they'll do once they're in jail...
Oh, they'll have a hard time.
They won't, because they'll be separated from the general population and they'll be looked after. And make sure nobody can get near. I say put them in the general population.
Well, they might be separated for their own safety. We'll see.
I say don't separate them for their own safety.
What you mean? Let them get sort of beaten up and killed?
Let them get whatever they want. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I hope bad things happen to them, but I think as a nation, as a civilised democratic country, we have to protect even people like them. That isn't to say they will be properly protected, but, I don't think that we can throw people to the wolves, even monsters like that. But I know where you're coming from. I'm pretty relaxed about any bad fate that may befall those two terrible monsters. It's a baby, for God's sake. I cannot believe what they did to that poor little kid. It's just unbelievable. Listen, Karen, a pleasure to talk to you as always. It's Karen in Bournemouth. Don't forget, get your calls in. We're going to take a lot of calls later in the show. Lots to talk about. What do you think about Russia opening fire on what we think was a pleasure yacht, a British pleasure yacht, in the English Channel, just off the coast of the Isle of Wight? What is going on? A Russian warship opening fire in the English Channel on a British leisure yacht. Come on. What are we going to do about that? I know, nothing, because we can't do anything about it. We haven't got any defences. Keir Starmer, what have you done to this country? I can't believe it. It's just astonishing. So let me know what you think about war in the English Channel and how we can handle that, if at all. Let me know about what you think about Muslims praying right outside the Ministry of Defence. Do you agree with the Tory MP Nick Timothy that this al fresco Islamic worship, which is so theatrical in so many places, should be banned? He said it should be banned. Of course they can worship, they had mosques. Why do they have to do it outside the MOD? It was just yards away from a mosque where they did that there. So should that be banned? 0344 499 1000. And the BBC is admitting having meetings with migrant charities with a view to allegedly brainwashing kids to have a positive outlook when it comes to asylum seekers. The BBC, of course, denies this, so did the charities, but they did meet. And the charity said it was to get across, their thoughts about the migrant crisis, the migrant situation here in Britain. What's going on? Why is the BBC meeting with migrant charities, producers of a children's programme? Why? Don't you think that's a bit sinister, a bit thought policey, isn't it? 0344 499 1000. Let's go to break, shall we? And when we come back, or shall we play? Let's play one voice note. I've got a couple of voice notes. I'll play one voice note, save the other one for a bit later. This is another one on Russia, a Russian warship opening fire in the English Channel. This is from Perry.
Hi, Kevin. With all this, what's going on now with Russia, keep testing us to see what we're made of. We're not made of anything anymore. And I want 14 years of Conservative cuts. I want these politicians to be held personally accountable for what they've done to our armed forces. If we've ever invaded, why ain't they going to be held to account? Why will they still just get their massive pensions and get cushy jobs other places when they've left us absolutely and utterly defenceless? And with the fact that now Keir Starmer's trashed our relationship with America, we now stand alone. We stand alone and we have no way of supporting ourselves or looking after ourselves. I want these politicians, 14 years Conservatives, I want them held accountable for what they've done to this country and its defence.
I do too, Perry. I do too. They won't be, though. It's two-tier Britain. There are two types of people in this country. There's the political class who dwell on planet Westminster and don't know much about the real world, and there's the rest of us. And those idiots on planet Westminster are the ones who make all the wrong decisions that have successively, over the past 20 years or so, useless government after useless government after useless government, Tory and Labour, successively these people have ruined our country. Isn't that special? 0344 499 1000. Let's go to break. When we come back, Sun Sport with Director of Sport at that great newspaper, Sean Custis. He's over in America. Let's find out what's going on with the World Cup. That next. Stay tuned.
We've got some breaking news that has just come in. talkSPORT have announced a brand new partnership in a developing story. We hear they've created So Good Lager right in time for football's big summer. Just in, we're hearing that So Good Lager will be pouring pints across all O'Neill's pubs and some of the best sports pubs across the UK. With the big kickoff just around the corner, you can find out where to get your hands on a fresh pint of So Good Lager at talksport.com/lager.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Let's go straight over to New York. New York, so good they named it twice, and talk to the director of sport at the Sun newspaper, Sean Costis. How you doing, Sean?
Very good, Kevin. I so wanted to give you a spectacular backdrop of New York City, but we couldn't get the signal on the terrace, so I've had to come back down to my flat.
White.
And I could be anyway, couldn't I, really?
Apartment, Sean, apartment. You're in America
apartment.
now.
It's such a shame. I had a really good backdrop sorted out, but we couldn't sort the link.
I'm holding you to that the next time you come on. Right. Well, look, the overview so far, I would say, I watched Belgium and Egypt last night, and just in so many other games, the big teams, if you like, are really being held to task by what you might call the underdogs, the smaller teams. With one or two exceptions, I would say that's the story of this World Cup. Don't count anyone out.
Well, Spain were held by Cape Verde. That's very, very true. But I mean, Germany smashed Curacao.
Yeah.
So, and the thing about Spain joining with Cape Verde, they had all the ball. They just couldn't force the way through, and they actually not that well off for out-and-out strikers, Spain. But that's been a problem for them before, and they've still won tournaments. So I don't think they'll worry too much about that. We saw in the last World Cup, Argentina lost their first game against Saudi Arabia in 2022, and they still won the tournament. So
yeah, that's
you
true.
can't really
That's
go
true.
into. That said, if England don't win their first game against Croatia, I'm sure we'll be going berserk.
Well, you know, I don't want to prejudge or tempt fate, but you know what England are like. If past performances are anything to go by, they'll make it agony for us, won't they?
Well, yeah, but you say that, but we have got quite a bit of good form going into this.
Sure.
We've been in 2 Euros finals, we've had a World Cup semi-final and quarter-final. It's about making that next step. So, yes, I would have agreed with you 10 years ago, 15 years ago, but not now. I think we're a team who knows what it takes to get to the business end of the competition. It's just getting over that next line. And we on Sun Sport have our very own columnist, Kyle Walker, who's been there and done it. And he's on our Proper Football Daily show. And he's feeling confident. He's been explaining to us about the pressures in the early games, which you'll be able to watch on our show tomorrow.
Yep.
And he feels that they've learned a lot from the previous tournaments, and that actually they're in a pretty good place. And people like his old mate Harry Kane, who he played with at Tottenham and for England when he was Kane's vice captain, are in. I mean, Kane's in the form of his life.
Yeah.
He's not troubled by injury. He's confident. He's talking a great game, but he's talking a great game with good justification. And I think it feels that England are in quite a good place. Albeit, overnight we've had the injury issue with Tino Livramento, who was called up to this squad. Despite the fact he'd been injured for the last few weeks at Newcastle, he was called in. He seemed to be doing okay, and then picked up another injury on Sunday in training. And that means that Trevoh Chalobah of Chelsea has had to be flown out at the last minute. You're allowed to replace somebody in the squad 24 hours before you play your first game, and Tuchel has decided to do that. Now, Chalobah has only played once for England, but he's been around the scene for a long time. Tuchel knows him well. He had him when he was at Chelsea. when Tuchel was manager of Chelsea, so he knows Chalobah. He trusts in him. Chalobah's been keeping himself fit, and he can fill in all the way along the back line. We've actually used Chalobah, who's really a centre-back, to replace a right-back in Livramento, but Tuchel has a lot of confidence in him as a backup player.
Sure. And I should tell everybody, go to the Sun's website. There's all sorts of TV shows, great reporters. There's some brilliant journalists out there for the Sun newspaper. And Sean's there as well. Ha, ha, ha. That's why I get the big bucks. So we've got France-Senegal at 8 p.m. tonight. Argentina, Algeria at 2 a.m. I may just not stay up for Austria-Jordan at 5 a.m. They're all live on talkSPORT, but the big guns are starting to open their accounts, France and Argentina.
Yeah, France is here in New York. I say here in New York. It takes a bit of time to get out there to the MetLife Centre. It was a bit of a trial, which I did on there for Brazil-Morocco on Saturday night. It's hard work. It's hard work getting back. But when you get there, you get a great atmosphere. France, as usual, have not had a smoothest of build up. There's a few questions about Kylian Mbappe and his application to the squad. He's been criticised a bit for going off with his girlfriend ahead of the tournament. There's been a little bit of talk about a snub to N'Golo Kante, no handshake between the two. And of course, history has shown us that France do have their bust-ups. There's a great documentary on Netflix at the moment called The Bus, the story of a mutiny by France in the 2010 World Cup, when the players fell out with Raymond Domenech, who was the manager at the time, went on strike, basically, ended up sat on a team bus and refusing to train, but not being able to move because Domenech nicked the keys. And the rift between them was over Anelka and his treatment of Anelka. And it's often the case with a big personality in the French team that things don't run smoothly. And Mbappe, of course, has his moments, both at Real Madrid and with France. He had them at PSG as well. And he's a very big character who likes things done in a certain way, and it doesn't always gel with the rest of the group.
Interesting stuff. Now, shall we have a little bit of mutual sympathy, Sean, to finish off with the gambler, the punter, who put $1 million on Polymarket, you know, the American cryptocurrency gambling platform. He was allowed to put $1 million on Spain beating Cape Verde. Seemed like a safe bet. He would have won 85,943 quid and 48p. Instead, he walked away $1 million worse off. On that bombshell, I'll leave you to think about that, and don't you get involved in gambling, Sean. It's very, very bad for you, as that guy will tell you. Good to talk to you, mate. Come on again soon. The brilliant Sean Custis, Director of Sport at the Sun newspaper. As I say, go to that paper. Great website. All the programmes, all the reports. World Cup excellence there in a nutshell. Next up, we are going to do the big stories of the day. Stay tuned.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
If you know Dartmoor, that wild area of unspoilt countryside, moors, woods, rivers, all that in the West Country, you'll know about Dartmoor ponies. They've been there for 4,500 years. They live there semi-wild. There's a government eco-quango who wants to kill 9 out of every 10 of them. Nearly all of them, wants to kill most of them in order to preserve local landscapes, habitats and other creatures. To hell with that. To hell with that. Equine genocide by these eco-zealots. No, thank you very much. Let me know what you think. 0344 499 1000. But for the next 20 minutes or so, let's spend them in the excellent company with the Research Director at the Centre for Migration Control, Robert Bates. Hi, Robert.
Evening, Kevin. How are you doing?
Very well. Good of you to join us. Thank you so much. Now, first of all, let's talk about this shocking incident in the English Channel off the coast of the Isle of Wight sometime this morning, around about 11:30. A Russian warship opened fire on a, we think, well, it's a UK British leisure yacht. It opened fire on a UK British leisure yacht. These were apparently warning shots. But what is going on? We've got Russian warships in the English Channel, just off the coast of the Isle of Wight, opening fire. You know why they're doing that? Because they've read the papers, they've watched the news, they've listened to the news, and they know that we, Britain, we're a sitting duck. They're just taunting us because we've got no defence.
That's exactly what it is. I mean, I think it coincides, of course, with all the furore over Keir Starmer's unwillingness to actually put money into defence and instead to continue funding those that just choose not to go to work and not going anywhere near the welfare bill. And I think actually this really should be a wake-up call to everyone in Whitehall outside of the MOD who have been very happy for the current malaise and disinterest in defence spending to continue. And of course, it's not just the Labour Party that have done this. The Tory Party are just as culpable as well, in my view. I think, unfortunately, the UK's whole ability to defend itself has been systematically degraded, and we've been coasting on this sense of international stature that just doesn't actually match up with the material facts. And you know, that's worked for a time. We've been able to report that we're still a great power. You know, we had the aircraft carriers going off with great aplomb, and there's a lot of song and dance about it. But the simple facts of the matter are that we have not in any way taken steps to prepare for the coming multipolar world that we are already in, and it's going to increase. And we're going to see not just increased threats from Russia, but of course China, Iran, and so forth. And I just don't think anyone has really been prepared to tackle this in a long-term approach, because of course to actually get to grips and to put in place good defence planning, you need long-term horizons. But that just doesn't work when you've got politicians that are banded around by journalists like they're the sort of sacks of grain and buffeted by the winds of whatever's on the front page of a newspaper. And I think we need now, as a country, to settle down and realise that we're coming into an uncertain period. We need to stop putting significant amounts of money into our defence capabilities.
And if you remember, not so long ago, the Russian Navy put on a kind of quite a pathetic display of strength sailing through the English Channel. And John Healey, the then Defence Secretary, said famously, "We see you. Hey, Putin, we see you." Well, that wasn't much of a response. We need to do something to let Russia know you can't start opening fire off the coast of the Isle of Wight. We understand this was a motorless British yacht, a leisure cruiser, if you like, which had drifted towards the Admiral Grigorovich, that was the Russian warship, in foggy conditions after setting off from the UK. So it drifted towards this Russian vessel, and the Russians just opened fire. We got to tell them you can't do that. But I suspect they'll say to us, what are you going to do about it? You haven't got any defences.
Well, that is, of course, the obvious response, and I think the risk here is that politicians do think that the only way to respond to Russian aggression is to continue funneling even more money into the Ukraine conflict. I don't think that would be the right approach, because what we're talking about here is literally the borders of our country. We're not talking about conflicts that are far flung, and I think actually this is something that, although it's incredibly stressful to see, it doesn't require short-term sort of spasmodic responses that perhaps aren't as thought through and are really done again for PR points here. We do need to just have a load of intelligent bureaucrats or individuals that know what they're doing, generals and so forth, sit down and work out how we get our defence to anywhere near where the level they need to be, because we're at a fraction of competence across the board. Procurements up down the Swanee is going absolutely ridiculous in terms of actual investment. We're planning for wars that happened decades ago. And I think, unfortunately, now is the time, and it's taken this to probably alert individuals to the threat, individuals in Whitehall, but now is the time for us to get very, very serious and thinking in 10-year horizons.
I would agree. John Healey, the departing Defence Secretary, and indeed the departing Defence Minister, Al Carnes, both made their resignation speeches today. Here's John Healey speaking in the House of Commons earlier.
NATO has now said we must prepare for war with Russia within the next 5 years. This is the age of hard power and rising threat. This is not the moment for calibration or incremental change. This means bigger politics, bolder priorities, harder choices. And Britain's challenge now is the transformation and the rearmament of our armed forces. The Prime Minister knows what the country needs for defence. He spelled out the threat this month when he said, "It is our intelligence assessment and the assessment of other countries in NATO that there could be an attack by Russia on NATO as soon as 2030. So Britain must set the headmark of spending 3% on defence in 2030 and a clear path to 3.5% in 2035.
Well, listen, Robert, Healey and Al Carnes resigned because they told the Prime Minister and indeed Rachel from Accounts, the Chancellor, they told her and him, we need a minimum of £28 billion to get anywhere near our spending commitment to NATO and indeed anywhere near the investment needed to maintain this nation's defences. We need £28 billion. Rachel Reeves said, oh, you can have 10 billion. This triggered John Healey's immediate resignation. He quit down the phone furiously to Keir Starmer. And the new Defence Secretary, Dan Jarvis, has been told to put up and shut up and do with £13.5 billion. Our new Defence Secretary is being told he's got to defend this nation on essentially nowhere near enough money. This is dangerous.
Well, and even if the 28 billion was met, whether that's enough is another question. I think the most interesting thing on what Healey pointed out here was we need to start recognising that the only thing that matters in international politics is not soft power, it's not adherence to rules and norms set by international organisations. It is cold, hard power, and that is something that we have completely neglected for really, actually, since the end of the Cold War. And this is the only way you can make other states respect you, is if you have the ability, if push came to shove, to defend yourself, and you're making clear demonstrations to that effect. Sort of international conferences and waffling on about sort of obligations and human rights rules and so forth just simply don't actually matter when you boil down to the cold hard facts of what drives statesmen, particularly nefarious statesmen such as those in Moscow. And I think, again, today's event probably should be a wake-up call. I think it's come at an awful time for the government, and again shows what the threat they are exposing us to really is. And actually, whether they'll change tact at all remains doubtful. I think they are so wedded to basically keeping the welfare bill ballooning at the extent it is that they probably won't change tact. And I think, again, this could very well see the issue of defence and just what Labour although the Tories did a lot of damage before, and what Labour are doing to our defence posture, I think it will increase in salience. And, Labour have nowhere to turn because they've taken the very conscious decision to not do what is necessary.
Yeah, why worry about the defence of the realm, the defence of the country, when you can spend it all on welfare and migrants? Great, isn't it? Talking of migrants, Robert, let's move on to your comfort zone, shall we? Yesterday, 710 migrants came across the channel illegally on small boats. This is the largest single day of crossings, of small boat crossings so far this year. I mean, it's been quite a long period of no crossings, but I suspect now the weather's getting better. We should brace ourselves for the usual summer of discontent, because this government continues to do the square root of damn all about actually stopping these people invading our country.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think the numbers probably will tick up. We might not see sky-high levels like we saw in 2022, but I actually think the conversation is a little bit beyond that now. Of course, we saw the Express front page on Sunday saying that there are 100,000 lost asylum seekers in the country. We don't know where they are, what they're intending. We've, of course, got escalating asylum backlogs and individuals from war-torn countries, fighting age males sort of living in our communities. I think actually, even if another boat never crossed the English Channel, we still have a crisis on our hands here with the sheer scale of what we have seen over the last 8 years. That's not to say that, of course, we won't still see a mini armada come across over the summer months, but it's definitely actually now worth us recognising just how much damage the last 8 years really have done in terms of our fiscal position, but far more importantly, the social position and the security of communities up and down the country. We just simply don't remove those that have no legal right to be in the country. If you're from Afghanistan, Sudan, even if your asylum claim is rejected, you're pretty much here for good. And I think that's an incredibly worrying state of affairs. It effectively does mean that we have an open border.
Yeah, we've got at least 108,000 asylum seekers who failed their asylum applications, who just disappeared into the nation or just started appealing against their refusals, and they've just stayed here. So getting turned down for asylum doesn't in any way affect your ability to stay in the country. And of those 108,000, a remarkable number, 26,000 have been here for more than 10 years. That's a disgrace. It's an absolute disgrace. Shows you
Of course, they'll never be removed now because they can always claim, oh, well, I've been here for so long, I've got exceptional circumstances, and Article 8 of the ECHR will mean they can't be removed.
Well, quite exactly. Now, I've been showing this photo, this image today of a group of Muslims laying down their prayer mat, crouching down to pray in the way that they do, right outside the Ministry of Defence. I don't know if you can see that, but there they are, 4 of them, all very theatrically going through their worship rituals right outside the Ministry of Defence. Nick Timothy, the Tory MP, says that these kind of theatrical al fresco displays of Islamic worship should be banned. This happened just a couple of hundred yards from the nearest mosque. So Nick Timothy says, well, they're doing this for a reason. They're doing it to prove that the Muslim religion is more important, is more powerful than the British state. And he says this is an act of political dominance, just as it was in Trafalgar Square a couple of months ago, 3,000 or so Muslims worshipping, praying in the open air. And on that same day, a place called Heaton Park in Birmingham, 30,000 Islamic worshippers praying in the open air. Nick Timothy says that these al fresco open air praying sessions that are quite clearly strategic, you know, it's not an accident they're outside the MOD. He says they should be banned, if nothing else, for the self-respect of this nation.
Yeah, Nick Timothy was absolutely right with this. It is an act of expressing a sense of domination. It is a, what are you going to do about it? We know full well that we can do this. We can engage in religious behaviour on the streets of Britain near a really, really sensitive building, and absolutely nothing will happen. I think he was absolutely right. You know, we have got mosques in the country. They are, you know, perfectly entitled to go and pray there, but the secular should remain the secular. And I think when you actually contrast you know, the MOD's response to this, in that they allowed it to continue happening, when you compare it to individuals across the country who, you know, go and preach outside police stations or on streets or outside medical centres that are turfed away in handcuffs, you kind of recognise these individuals are right, they can get away with it. And it really is an act of domination. I think, unfortunately, we have been far too timid when it comes to confronting behaviours that are trying to push the boundaries as to what's acceptable. If you can get away with this now, what can we get away with in another year or so? And I think it's time as a country that we stop with the timidity and recognise what our heritage was, recognise what we are as a country. We are a Christian nation, and even if the numbers attending churches are falling, it is still baked into every single fibre of our institutions. And I think if we continue to allow other individuals from other backgrounds, other religions, to engage in overt expressions in really, really sensitive and actually quite significant culturally significant areas of the country, it's almost a bit sort of soul destroying. It's almost an attack on the very fabric of what the country actually is. So I think Nick Timothy here, who's always been very good on this issue, was absolutely right to call it out. I hope there would be a national debate on this, but I don't think there will be.
Yeah, I would. At the very least, we need to talk about this. I don't mind individual Muslims praying in the open air. It's part of their creed. They put their mat towards Mecca and they pray. I don't mind them doing that now. That's part of their religion. But these group acts, these strategic acts, are clearly trying to tell us something, and I think we should respond by telling them, you can't do this. I don't think it's a bad idea to ban it. Let me ask you about, talking of banning, our Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, over there in France, beating his chest like he's some great big tough world leader at the G7. What a joke. You can look at Donald Trump looking at him and, you can see that Trump's contempt for this little man, Starmer, knows no bounds. And I'm with old Trump on that one. But he's brought in this social media ban for under 16s. Until yesterday, I reported this and we weren't told that it wasn't true. Blue Sky, the left-wing social media site, was not banned for under 16s. But today, I think hastily, the government has stuck Blue Sky in as well, realising you can't just say we're banning social media sites that we don't like, that have right-wing worldviews on them, and then not ban a social media site that they do like, that has left-wing worldviews. So it looks as if they've moved to close that loophole in this ban. So Blue Sky, it seems, will be banned along with the rest of them. But Ian Russell, who is the father of Molly Russell, that poor little girl, teenage girl who took her own life because she was bullied online, he says, of all people, he says, I'm totally against this sledgehammer ban. This isn't the way to deal with this. And he's right. We've got to be far more complex about this, far more astute about this, because this ban, he thinks this is going to be his legacy. My legacy is I banned something. Well done, Keir. So banning social media for under 16s, in Australia they've done the same, and they say that at least 60% of under 16-year-old Australians have got round the ban, no problem at all. So this is purely performative. Our kids will still get onto social media while Keir Starmer's saying, I banned it. It's pointless unless you're going to do it properly.
So I think what is needed, and I think this is what Mr. Russell was definitely asking for, was just actual enforcement of regulations and a much more nuanced, sort of scalpel-like approach with a bit of intelligence. Starmer clearly has known he's been trounced in the local elections, and his premiership is on the rocks, and he has whipped out something that he does grab headlines, banning social media. If you'd sort of led within a press release, we're going to enforce more intelligent regulation of social media, it's very much doubtful that it would actually get anywhere near the cut through and the media pickup that it has. So it is again, it's PR driving policy. There's no doubt about that. And when it comes to sort of kids getting around this, it is inevitable. I mean, there was the DWP secretary was on another broadcaster earlier today, sort of being shown how quickly it is to sign up for VPNs and get around any ban that might be in place, and she was like, well, we'll come back to that. I think what we're going to see here is we've seen a government that's been outsmarted by people smugglers when it comes to the channel, and we're now going to see a government that's being outsmarted left, right and centre by teenagers. They just don't know how to govern. Even putting aside the ideological version many of us likely have to social media bans, just the lack of intelligence and design of any system that would actually work is astounding from people that are meant to be the best and brightest in governing us for the betterment of our country. They're just not up to the job. They certainly are not. And on that bombshell, Robert, thank you so much for coming on. Always good to talk to you. Robert Bates, he's Research Director at the Centre for Migration Control. Next up, we're going to cover a story that has personally infuriated me. They want to kill 9 out of 10 of the Dartmoor ponies, the legendary ponies. They've been there 4,500 years. They live there semi-wild. And now a government eco-zealot quango wants to exterminate 90% of them to preserve the local landscape, to preserve habitats and to protect other species. Well, not if you've got to commit equine genocide. You can't do that. We will talk about this story next, in my case, with a degree of fury. Let me know what you think about that. They want to kill, they shoot horses, don't they? Yeah, they do. They want to kill 90% of those lovely ponies that live on Dartmoor. What on earth are they thinking? 03444991000. We'll talk to someone who knows all about that next. Stay tuned.
We've got some breaking news that has just come in. talkSPORT have announced a brand new partnership in a developing story. We hear they've created So Good Lager right in time for football's big summer. Just in, we're hearing that So Good Lager will be pouring pints across all O'Neill's pubs and some of the best sports pubs across the UK. With the big kickoff just around the corner, you can find out where to get your hands on a fresh pint of So Good Lager at talksport.com/lager.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Now, let's talk about those poor little ponies on Dartmoor. These eco-zealots want to kill most of them off to preserve the landscape, to preserve habitats and protect other species. These little horses have been on Dartmoor for millennia, 4,500 years. And I would suggest that the whole nation should rise up in horror and stop this government eco-quango from bringing about what I would describe as equine genocide. This is mass murder of horses for eco-zealots. No, 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 we're not going to allow that. Let's talk to a volunteer for the Friends of the Dartmoor Hill Ponies, Joanne Lovemore. Hi, Joanne.
Good evening, hi.
I'm a bit of an animal lover. I'm notorious for that. It's the one chink in my hard guy armour. But I'm furious about this story. We can't let them do this, can we?
I agree, 100%. Yeah, I mean, these ponies, as you say, have been there for millennia, since the Bronze Age, possibly even a lot longer than that. They are part of Dartmoor's landscape, its culture, its heritage. Their genetics have evolved to adapt to the moorland environment. To argue that they're negatively impacting biodiversity is just false. Frankly, they actually contribute to the biodiversity and the preservation of nature on the moor and the abundance of other species that survive there. They're an integral part of the landscape, and we can't lose them. You're absolutely right.
So it's Natural England is the euphemistically named organisation, the Quango, that wants to reduce livestock grazing, as in these little horses, by about 75%. That could result, if they're allowed to do this culling, in the extermination of 9 out of every 10 of these poor little horses. Now, I'll tell you, Joanne, the nation won't accept this. I don't accept it. You don't accept it. So I think Natural England has got some trouble coming its way. But how can it be that these horses, who've been there for 4,500 years, somehow or other are detrimental to the environment in which they live? They're an integral part of it, obviously.
100%, yeah, and the research that Natural England is basing these recommendations on was not carried out on Dartmoor. It was carried out in other ecosystems in Cumbria in the north, which respond very differently to reducing the grazing pressure. And they don't have ponies on those ecosystems either, on those environments. So Dartmoor is a very different scenario. It was been shown as pony numbers on the moor have progressively reduced over the years in response to agri-environment schemes. We had 6,000 about 25 years ago. Now there's just 1,000 remaining, or less than even. And as a result, we have this millennia grass, this invasive species, taking over the moor, which crowds out everything else that's a native species. We see the insects die off, the birds leave, because nothing else can live in this millennia-dominated environment. The ponies will graze that millennia. They are the one animal that will effectively keep that millennia in check and allow those other species to come through.
Tell me, what's this millennia? What is that? What is that?
It's an invasive grass species. So there's on large tracts of the moor, which, I mean, an independent DEFRA commissioned review in 2023 found that vast tracts of Dartmoor are actually undergrazed. Okay, so the ponies are part of that, but cattle and sheep as well. So where that is happening, we have this millennia grass taking over. It's a thick, reedy, shrubby kind of grass. And we get this kind of build-up of the old growth underneath the new shoots coming through, which is just dry kind of tinder, really. So there is also a wildfire risk where this millennia takes over, where we have kind of hectares and hectares of nothing but millennia as far as the eye can see. The moor is very vulnerable to wildfires as well, and as kind of climate change kicks in, that's also, inevitably going to be potentially a problem. The ponies are the solution. They're not part of the problem.
And you are going to campaign hard against this, aren't you? If you need any help, you've got my number. I mean, this is outrageous. So you've got these eco-zealots saying that this is environmental. I don't care what's environmental, but killing 90% of the Dartmoor ponies that have been there for 4,500 years is, as I say, mass murder. It's equine genocide. You're not going to let it happen, Joanne, and nor am I. Keep up the good work and you keep in touch. Any way I can help, let me know. That's Joanne Lovemore, volunteer for the Friends of the Dartmoor Hill Ponies. Can you believe that? Can you believe they want to do that? Natural England, a sort of quasi-government quango. It's environmental, eco. It's to help save the planet. Save the planet by shooting horses, killing horses. Little horses. They haven't done anyone any harm. Come on, for God's sake, what is this country coming to? 03444991000. Let's go to break, and you'll never guess. Got a little treat for you. Jo Frost, super nanny, was having technical problems earlier. That's why we couldn't get through to her. But she's very kindly sorted out her problems, got in touch. So she's coming on next. We're going to talk about the social media ban for under 16s with none other than Super Nanny, TV's Super Nanny, Jo Frost. That next. You don't want to miss it.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Well, let's go straight over to my next guest. Really glad she got in touch. Really glad we made contact at last. She's global parenting expert and, of course, a big TV star. She is Jo Frost, Super Nanny. Welcome to the show, Jo.
Hello, Kevin. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, and thank you very much for taking the trouble to get in touch. We were devastated when we couldn't get through to you earlier. No problem. Now, what your view? Is it a good thing for the government to ban social media for our under 16s?
Absolutely. And finally, we are in a space where we can protect childhood. There is too many algorithms and platforms that are doing serious harm to many of our teenagers. And I advocate for protecting children's childhood and for families to be more connected in a time where big tech and companies profit, exploit our children and earn money off of that. And we know that those brave bereaved families who have been campaigning for years, who have lost their own children because of such, are now in a place where they can't get back their families, but they have campaigned hard, and I stand alongside them, to protect families and every other child. And even though that may be difficult for many families who are now going to reset the bar, I believe it's imperative that we do so. We are longer adults than we are children, and we must preserve that. We must see the value in that.
Yeah, you're right about that. I've been so long an adult, I can barely remember being a child. Seriously. You know, my view on it, Jo, now, I totally accept we've got a problem here. You know, online harm to children is one of the scourges of our age. Kids getting bullied online, terrible. We've had children taking their own lives, dreadful.
That's right.
Something has to be done. My view is that the banning of children from social media, or the scrutiny of children on social media, should be a job for mums and dads, for parents. Why do they need the government to bring in a law? What difference will that make to a mother and father trying to keep their kids off harmful social media?
In the same way that it did for cigarettes, in the same way that it did for gambling, in the same way that it did for alcohol. I'm not saying that it's not bulletproof, because We all know as kids, you know, you're older, I'm older. We all know that as teenagers, if there's a will, there's a way around something, but that's not the point. It's not about it being completely perfect. It's not going to be, and I accept that. I said this morning on my own Instagram reel, but law makes it a little bit easier for parents knowing that they have the support of the government that have chosen to stand by them and not the big tech companies that are profiting, being able to create the platforms they do that weave into the tapestry of family life and create devastation. You can't come back from that, Kevin. You can't come back from it. We must prevent. And so that's why it is important. So it's not about being a nanny state. What it is recognizing that parents need the support from the government at this point.
Yeah, fair enough. Just nanny state, super nanny state. That's what we need. Seriously, what about the psychology of children? I'm not that much of an expert on kids today, but when I was a kid, if you told me, oh, there's this thing that your mum and dad don't want you to do, I'll go, right, let's do it. And if you then added the special cherry on the cake, it's against the law, right, I'm really up for that. So what about that aspect? Because in Australia, 60% of kids under the age of 16 who are also banned from social media have got round it. They're getting onto social media. What about that aspect of natural youthful rebellion that may cause some kids to say, well, I can now disobey my mum and dad and also disobey the government, triple whammy?
Well, if you've got families that are going to support children who are going to do as such, because from my perspective, listening to hundreds of emails, reading hundreds of emails I receive from kids, they're not out there buying their phones. They're not out there paying for their plans. They're not out there doing that. And that's why parents must work together with the law that's been put in place to be able to make sure that they do their job too, protecting their children. Now, look, if you've got a spirited child who's going to do anything to find their way around it, that's in any country, to be honest with you.
Yeah, of course.
But it doesn't stop the ones who are completely protected because they're working alongside. And I don't want to turn this into a Jamie's dinner thing, but we've got to grow up as parents. We've got to grow up and take responsibility too, working now with a government that's heard us and do right by our kids. And I say that with conviction, because at the end of the day, we all heard those kids yesterday, Kevin, say, I don't know what I'm going to do for 9 hours. I'll tell you what they're going to do. They're going to sit bored for 3 of them, and then they're going to get up from their backsides and they're going to be creative. They're going to connect with their parents. They're going to knock for their friends, and they're going to live as children should, as teenagers should, before they become adults and before they've had the dialogue with their families on a slower, longer term to start to get introduced and to understand social media. And we need that time.
So you feel, Joe, and I think most people would agree with you, I certainly agree with you, that social media, in its rise and rise, I mean, it's been going on now, I guess, for getting on for 30 years, has completely changed childhood for so many kids. So if this ban is successful and we get kids off social media, we get them off their phones and their tablets, do you think there may be, as you were indicating just now, a return to what used to be childhood for people like me, running around the fields, playing football and living an outdoor active life? Do you think that might help?
It certainly will help, but I'm not saying that what the government are doing right now needs to be worked on. It's not the finishing line, Kevin. It's the beginning of a step forward, because we do need money into youth clubs, into activities and sports centres. We do need opportunity for children where there are lesser free admissions for them to be able to gather as well. And at the same time, we give our kids, because we are talking about a special period of that time, the teenage years, right? So under 16, it gives parents a longer time. It allows them to be able to give their children the opportunity to remember what we remember as kids, coming together with other kids.
Well said, Joe. Now, where can we get your work these days? You mentioned your Instagram reel. How do we get hold of that, for example?
Yeah, everything Joe Frost, you know.
Everything Joe Frost. All right, Joe, really good to talk to you. Thank you so much for coming on. Words of wisdom. You know more about this stuff than probably almost anyone, certainly me. Joe Frost, global parenting expert there, a.k.a. Super Nanny, TV's Super Nanny. She's right behind the ban on social media for under 16s. You know, my viewpoint, my standpoint, I've made that very clear. I understand the problems. I just think social media bans are for mums and dads to impose, not government. Not laws, parenting. That's what I think this is about. But Joe says, and, you know, I bow to her superior knowledge, obviously. Joe says that the law, a government law, will help parents keep their kids off social media, and that social media has been pernicious. We have kids, you know, spending hours and hours every day. She's referring to a little kid who was interviewed, who was asked, I think this came out yesterday, said, well, how long did you spend, it's like a Monday morning, how long did you spend on social media over the weekend? She said, oh, about 9 hours. What will you do when you're not allowed to go onto social media? She said, stare at the wall. Think about that. 03444991000. Let's go to break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Russian warship opening fire in the English Channel, just off the coast of the Isle of Wight. What on earth is going on? We'll talk to former NATO Rear Vice Admiral Chris Parry. That next. Stay tuned.
We've got some breaking news that has just come in. talkSPORT have announced a brand new partnership in a developing story. We hear they've created So Good Lager right in time for football's big summer. Just in, we're hearing that So Good Lager will be pouring pints across all O'Neill's pubs and some of the best sports pubs across the UK. With the big kickoff just around the corner, you can find out where to get your hands on a fresh pint of So Good Lager at talksport.com/lager.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Just going to go over to former Rear Vice Admiral Chris Parry in just a second. Just read a couple of messages because I haven't really read many of this show. Thank you for sending them in, as always. Sorry I didn't get to enough of them. This is from Nigel. Is it possible now that 16-year-olds can vote that banning under-16s from social media could cause a potential backlash regarding how teenagers view these restrictions, hence leading them to vote elsewhere? Yes, it is possible, Nigel. And that, of course, is a ridiculous, inherent contradiction in what Keir Starmer's doing. He gives the vote to 16-year-olds. You're grown-ups. You're old enough to vote. Oh, but you can't go onto social media because you're too young. Ah, what? Joanna from Salisbury says, I love Joe Frost, but adults are being punished. That's about the social media ban. I don't totally agree with Joe Frost, but I'm certainly going to defer to her. She knows more about this thing than I do, and she says she thinks it's a good thing, this social media ban. Somebody here asked me, after this ban comes in, will a 15-year-old kid be breaking the law if they go on social media? Yeah, I think that's the idea. If you're under 16, you go on social media, that's going to be against the law. That is it. Right, let's go over now to former Rear Admiral Chris Parry, former NATO and Royal Navy commander. Chris, welcome to the show.
Hi, Kevin.
Good to have you on board. Right, well, we'll need to get your reaction. Russian roulette, if you like, in the English Channel. Extraordinary scenes off the coast of the Isle of Wight, no less. A Russian warship opening fire on a British leisure yacht. Now, they didn't actually aim it. It was warning shots, apparently. But this is extraordinary. A Russian warship, the Admiral Grigorovich, sailing into the English Channel and just opening fire, shooting into the sea to warn a British yacht, a leisure yacht. We can't allow this, can we, Chris? But the fact of the matter is, because of defence spending or total lack thereof, we have to allow it. We'll have to put up with it. Russia's taunting us. They know we are weak and vulnerable because this government has let us down on defence spending.
Well, at first, when I heard about it, I was driving at the time. I thought this was the Russians bidding for a Stop the Boats contract, the way they were acting. But
well, they can have it as far as I'm concerned. They couldn't do a worse job than the French.
Yeah, absolutely. And they cost a lot less as well, I think. But all seriousness, at the one end, this is incredibly unprofessional. So you've got a lot of options to warn off a yacht before you have to resort to firing in its general direction. In any case, the rule of the road at sea says that powered vessels have to give way to sailing vessels. You know, I've been in that situation many times in my life thinking, why is this yacht getting in my way? But in fact, the yacht has priority. It's as simple as that, unless the warship has special operation shapes flying, and I don't think it did at the time. It's got no right to open fire. It's got a siren. It's got flares. It's got a radio it can use. So there's no reason to do it. So I think you hinted, Kevin, just now what this is about. This is the Russians saying, look, a word in your ear. The next time you try and intercept one of our shadow tankers, OK, here's a little taster of what you might get next time. That's what they're saying. And what most people who are commentating on this at the moment are thinking like Brits. They're not thinking like Russians. The Russians are saying, you know, according to mafia rules, we're giving you fair warning now that if you interfere with another one of our tankers with one of your PR stunts, this is what's going to happen. That's what the lesson from today is.
Yeah, and also, of course, the Russians, they watch the TV too. They watch the news. They listen to the news on the radio. They read the British newspapers. They know that Britain, thanks to Labour and the lack of spending on defence and previous Tory governments, but Labour's made it even worse, we're now militarily a sitting duck. That's why Russia is taunting us.
Well, you know, around the world, weakness is a provocation. You know, the Israelis say this all the time. If you appear weak, you're going to get attacked. And what's happening here is the Russians are saying, look, even in your backyard, the English Channel, which you have kept clear for centuries, when in days past, if a foreign warship didn't dip its ensign to a British warship, you open fire. And in the 17th century, if this had happened, that ship would be at the bottom of the English Channel. It's as simple as that. They're taking the mickey, Kevin, and they know, as you say, that we don't have the political will or indeed the capability to run up against it.
Overarchingly, what's your view on this perilous state this country has come to? I mean, going back to, was it last Thursday, Friday, the dramatic resignations of John Healey and Al Carnes, the Defence Secretary and the Defence Minister, both of them making it very plain that Keir Starmer's policies, spending all the money on welfare and migrants and nut zero, £350 billion a year on welfare and rising. They're saying, well, you have to put the fact that you haven't put that money, any of that money our way, defence way, you've let the nation down, you put the nation at risk. I mean, defence secretaries and defence ministers don't resign in unison for nothing. I mean, this is a shocking state we've arrived at, isn't it?
Kevin, I mean, there's more playing here within the Labour Party. It's not just about our defences. There's a leadership power play going on here, and everybody's manoeuvring on the chessboard in anticipation of Keir Starmer going. I think we've got to recognise that it's not just about defence. There are private ambitions and agendas at play here. But I have to tell you, my last job in the Navy from 2005 to 2008, I was banging this drum saying Russia's coming back, China is rising very rapidly. We need to engage. I was accused of being alarmist. My career ended in 2008, and we were so bogged down in Afghanistan and Iraq, we forgot to actually see what was coming around the corner, which was, as I said, Russia and China coming back again. And I have to tell you, it's the fault of electoral politics. When you've got an election every 5 years, trying to get any strategic sense out of politicians is a dead loss.
Yeah, I think that's fairly evident. Have a listen to this. This is John Healey's resignation speech, Chris. Today in the House of Commons, both he and Al Carnes, his deputy, both delivered their quitting speeches. But this is John Healey. Let's see what you think about what he had to say.
NATO has now said we must prepare for war with Russia within the next 5 years. This is the age of hard power and rising threat. This is not the moment for calibration or incremental change. This means bigger politics, bolder priorities, harder choices. And Britain's challenge now is the transformation and the rearmament of our armed forces. The Prime Minister knows what the country needs for defence. He spelled out the threat this month when he said, "It is our intelligence assessment and the assessment of other countries in NATO that there could be an attack by Russia on NATO as soon as 2030. So Britain must set the head mark of spending 3% on defence in 2030 and a clear path to 3.5% in 2035.
Well, regardless of personal ambition, and there may be something going on there, Chris, between Healey and Al Carnes, you know, some kind of joint twin-pronged attack on the leadership. But, you know, John Healey, politics is politics, but he's a serious politician, quite rare in the Labour government. What did you think about what he was saying? As a former NATO man, he says the chances are, or we need to prepare for Russia attacking a NATO country by 2030. What are your thoughts about what he said?
Well, Kevin, I came on this station 10 years ago and said this was a likely scenario. I mean, there are a number of things with that speech that I have a problem with. One is the fact that it could happen well before 2030. Yes. And, you know, Putin and his mates aren't going to wait until 2030 when we're ready to attack us if they want to. The second thing is if there is a sort of peace in Ukraine, Putin's going to have 1 million people under arms, which he won't know what to do with. He's either going to project those against our borders around the Baltic, Sweden, Finland, the Baltic states, and a lot of his good kit is still sitting there in the Western Military District, or he's going to push them out into Africa to support, you know, their black operations there. So it could happen at any time. And people always think in terms of Russia invading Europe. They're not. if you look at what they do to Ukraine, they could smash us up really badly with their weapon system. And we do not have a weapon system in this country that can take out drones, ballistic, cruise and hypersonic missiles. We're wide open. And the warning was sounded on this, I can tell you now, in the Ministry of Defence in 2002, that we needed this sort of defence. And that's how long it's taken to actually get round to that register. The other thing is we shouldn't be talking about percentages of GDP. We should be working out what capabilities we need to deter and defeat our potential opposition. And then we work out what the price is and the risk we're prepared to take. And I would say to all politicians right now, if you invest in deterrence, you're not going to have to invest in war, because war's a lot more expensive than deterrence. Right now, our deterrence isn't credible. The European partners, I'm afraid, have a motto of can't fight, won't fight. And it's pointless saying we're going to be ready by 2030. I repeat, we need to be ready now, and we need to make sure that that is credible. Give an example, Kevin. The day after the Argentines invaded the Falklands, my ship was off Gibraltar. We were 95% stocked for war during the Cold War, okay? Within 2 hours, we topped up to 105%, and my ship and 10 others were sailing south within 6 hours. Now, that is a credible navy, a credible deterrent force, and we need to invest. And I'll point out that at that time, we invested 4.8% of GDP in defence. That's the scale we've got to get to.
Chris, good to have you on. These are worrying times, but always informative to listen to you. Thank you so much for coming on to the show. Rear Admiral Chris Parry, former NATO and Royal Navy commander there in the studio. He's disobeyed my orders. I've told him never to come into work wearing shorts again, and he's done it. He's wearing shorts. Peter Cardwell, in shorts, is in the studio. Hello, mate.
Kevin, you're just jealous of my perfect pins. You know.
Well, OK then, what the hell? Yes, I'm jealous of his legs.
Yes,
right,
it.
what have you got lined up, Peter?
Well, as a Russian warship has fired shots at a yacht in the Channel, we'll be speaking to Al Carnes in just a few minutes, the former Armed Forces Minister. He had an excoriating speech against the government and against Rachel Reeves today. We'll talk to him about that.
Do you think, by the way, sorry to interrupt, do you think John Healey and Al Carnes are plotting a two-pronged attack on the leadership themselves?
Wouldn't surprise me. I don't think Healey is necessarily up for it, but I think Al Carnes might be involved in some way. But also
Al Carnes could be PM, Healey the man pulling the strings in the background.
Also from Burnham's perspective, I mean, Burnham has said very, very little about foreign affairs or defence, so maybe Al Carnes could be
He probably hasn't even thought about them.
Maybe not. Rupert Lowe has published his rape gangs inquiry. We'll be speaking to someone who was heavily involved with that inquiry and the shocking findings that it had. We'll talk about Preston Davey, 8 missed opportunities to save the baby.